Sid and Friends in the morning.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
6:05 a.m. Eastern Time here in New York City. I'm Jake Novak. This is Sid and Friends in the morning. But it's Katz and Company taking over for the third straight day. This has been a takeover as Sid is in Israel doing some amazing, important work. Again, we hope to hear from him at some point this week. But in the studio with us for now, just for now, though we're going to have some more people.
More people?
This is the core group right now. We have John Catsimatidis, we have Fernando Mateo, and folks, this is you wouldn't know it if you were listening to any of the other radio stations in this city, at least in the first 10 minutes of their programming. But today is a primary day here in the entire state of New York. But we've got major congressional races in New York City. And Fernando and John, I'm sorry to say this because I wish it weren't true, but having major primaries on a random Tuesday in the summer after school is out when people are away is a form of voter suppression. Even Nate Silver said so. He wrote an article about it 10 years ago. This is a form of anti-conservative common sense. The common sense people who have to work for a living at all income levels. This isn't about the poor only. This is a way of suppressing our vote. Period. Because, I mean, you went on some of our competing radio stations this morning, and you don't even know that there's a primary today. And then later they'll say they're into politics.
Well,
baloney.
Jake, before I respond to that, I want you to know that John Catsimatidis inserted my picture in the New York Post today as being one of the hosts for the Sid show in the morning. So, John, thank you for that. I look very elegant.
Is that a younger picture of you?
No, it's actually me a few years ago, you know? Now, like a year or two ago.
I was going to ask you if you had a bar mitzvah, because that looks like your bar mitzvah picture.
Well,
Fernando.
you know, I'm half Jewish, you know, so it probably is. But listen, you're absolutely right. I believe that elections should take place on Sundays, over the weekend, allowing everyone to go out there and vote. There's a lot of people working today that could not take the day off, or that can't wait online if there are lines out there so that they could vote. So I personally don't believe in mail-in votes unless you're like a senior or you're in the military or you're disabled. But to be quite honest with you, we should have these elections on the weekends, the voting on the weekends.
If it's going to be an extended vote, I think the vote should be like 7 days, one shift, or 6 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and that's it.
In person.
In person.
And they, by the way, the numbers are down.
The military should be able to vote from wherever they are.
Yeah.
But unless you're traveling and you have an actual airline ticket, you know.
Even then, with the early voting should now we do have this early voting, by the way, but it's not publicized as much as it should be, and the numbers are down compared to 2 years ago. Apparently only 173,000 early voting ballots have been cast compared to quite a bit more the last time we had a midterm election, a few years ago. So this is not great news.
And it should end at midnight or something, midnight the day before or something, or the day of.
It does, yeah. Now, I'll say this.
I mean, not in California.
Yeah.
They're still counting votes
Well,
7 days later.
That's what I was just going to say. No matter who wins or loses tonight, I feel very confident that tonight we will know the winners of these primaries tonight.
Oil is down again.
Yeah.
$73.46.
And 32nd day in a row that the national average of gasoline is down, although only fractionally overnight. We're still at $3.92, but $3.92 and change. So that's good news.
Listen, John predicted this, so I think that it's going to happen. It's going to fall below 70 very soon. I think America should realize that what the president did with Iran is paying off. I mean, we're going to have a safer Middle East. We're going to have, we paid a little bit for a very short period of time. We paid more dollars at the gas pumps. Cab drivers did suffer for a little bit, but now things are coming back to normal.
By the way, the president liked our interview we did yesterday about Camp David.
Oh, wonderful. We got a little history in there.
Did he like the story, or did he like the fact that Margot was in the picture? I mean, what was
he liked the story.
Oh, okay.
Because we told the truth.
Yeah.
We
did.
About
we cleared something up.
Yeah.
We cleared something up, and I bet a lot of people didn't know there was a chapel at Camp David. So people know stuff
not
now.
too many pictures going around about Camp David, but I'll show you a few pictures on my iPhone.
Yeah.
They cannot go public.
Yeah. But getting back to our elections, we had a very ugly incident, and there's no other word for it. Very ugly incident in New York yesterday. One of the candidates in a major election, he's probably going to lose his seat today because he's expected to heavily lose to Brad Lander. This is Dan Goldman, who represents a mostly Brooklyn-based congressional district. Refused service at his local coffee shop in Williamsburg that he's been going to for years.
In Williamsburg.
In Williamsburg. And they said because he supports Israel, and they're not going to serve him. I mean, this has got real Jim Crow, but worse than that, post-Nuremberg law, Nazi Germany connotations to it. I'm looking at now, apparently, there's been no statement necessarily from the coffee shop, other than they wrote something on his order. They sent him back, and I guess he did an internet on his phone, on an app, and was going to pick up his order, and then they responded on the order saying, "We don't serve people who support Israel or genocide."
He has that in
Dan
writing.
Goldman.
He has that in a text form.
Yeah, and Noam can clear, and Noam had it in the news hour before. I mean, this is really scary stuff.
You know what's more scary is that it happened in Williamsburg.
Yeah.
Williamsburg is a
heavily Jewish area.
Very heavily Jewish area. I lived on Berry Street in Williamsburg.
You did, yeah.
And it was predominantly Jewish. So, I mean, who would do something like this?
Well, I'm looking at I'm going to hold off on saying his name just but I'll look into it more. I want to make sure.
What coffee shop was it?
It's called the Poetica Coffee Shop. That I can say, the name of the place.
Poetica
I'm looking at the
Coffee Shop.
owner's LinkedIn thing. I'm going to hold off on his name until I get I'm sure he's the owner. I don't want to say the wrong person's name. That's important. But it doesn't look good. And
what was he doing?
Well, the coffee shop refused service to Dan Goldman, and they said because they don't want to give coffee to, and this is the place he's been going to for a long time, because he supports Israel. He supports genocide. I mean, this is a refusal of service in New York City, in Williamsburg, because Dan Goldman is a supporter of Israel.
That's terrible. That brings us back to the days where you had the blacks and you had the whites, and the blacks couldn't go in, and the whites were only allowed, and this is unacceptable.
It's scary stuff.
It's very scary. And if you own a business, you're there to serve the community. It doesn't matter who walks in.
Yeah, well, Goldman is predicted on all the prediction markets to lose heavily today to Brad Lander, who's also Jewish.
Maybe he could flip the switch. Maybe he'll flip the switch.
That's a good point, Fernando.
Everyone in Williamsburg should go out there and vote. That heavily Jewish community should come together and vote.
But they're both Jewish.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but Lander is very heavily. I mean, if the Jewish people like Lander who oppose Israel, who think that they're going to get better treatment from these people because they have another thing coming. All right, that's
a little bit dumb.
Yeah, it's dumb. If they think, I'll show them my card that shows that I'm a good Jew. I mean, this is like saying I'm a good black or a bad black 50 years ago.
The same kind of Jews that were in Germany saying Hitler is not going to hurt us.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. And again, it's one of the, you asked me yesterday what causes all this anti-Semitism. I can tell you, it's got nothing to do with what Jews do or don't do. It's got nothing to do with that. Now, everyone should be well-behaved because you should be well-behaved and be a good citizen. But if Jews suddenly became all anti-Israel, it wouldn't stop.
Where's this coffee shop located? I mean, we should call them out.
Yeah. This is Poetica
we should call
Coffee
Poetica
Shop.
Coffee Shop in Williamsburg.
Yeah.
Refused to serve
Dan Goldman. The sitting U.S. congressman. By the way, an heir to the Levi Strauss fortune.
You got to get both sides of the story. Suppose Dan Goldman made the story up.
Yeah.
Wait.
No, this is all documented, and
Really?
the local news media did cover it pretty well. This is even CNN covered it nationally, and Harmeet Dillon, the U.S. attorney looking into civil rights, is now investigating the coffee shop for this. Like, was it just the employees? Was it is the owner aware of it? We haven't really heard much from the shop, but this is really an ugly, ugly moment, and it dovetails right into this primary right now. And unfortunately, I think this is going to give a signal to more Brad Landers out there. Brad Lander, who has gone out of his way to libel Israel, say all these lies about Israel in the hopes of him being labeled the good, quote, good Jew that you can vote for. He's got Mamdani's endorsement. He's probably going to win today. I mean, the odds are very heavily in his favor. The polls are heavily in his favor. You never know.
Whatever will be, will be.
Yeah.
Listen, everyone thought that Donald Trump wouldn't be president again, and he is, right?
Yeah.
So
Listen.
what you need to do is rally the community, go out there. These elections, these vote. Not too many people go out and vote.
Right.
During this election, right?
Well, that's what we were talking about right at the top of the hour.
If you get a big boost with people going out, they can easily turn the switch.
Yeah,
I mean, what's he going to win by 1,000 votes?
Yeah, that's true. You know,
How big is the community
that's
that,
what
that
we were
he's
talking
serving?
about. We were just talking about at the top of the hour. These primaries and these random work days in the middle of the week in the summer when people are also away is
It's
a form of
raining
voter
out today,
suppression.
too.
It's a little bit of rain. This is a form of voter suppression, and it drives me crazy. But that said, a relatively small number of people showing up to the polls could flip it because of the low turnout. So you never know. But this is a big test for Mayor Mamdani today, John, because he's endorsed a lot of candidates, but there are 3 key elections that Mamdani is going to be very much his report card today.
Yeah.
One is this election between Adriano Espaillat and Mamdani's endorsed person, this far left anti-Semitic candidate, Dariza Chevalier. Now, the latest polls I saw show Espaillat in a lead, but again,
that could turn
easily,
around.
Listen,
That could turn around.
we can jerk around all morning long. In 12 hours we'll find out who the winner is, and that'll be it. I mean, and we had John Fund on the show at 5:00 last night, and John Fund says if all 3 socialists win, then look at AOC challenging Schumer.
right. Yeah, that's an interesting. But by the way,
let's
that
see
other
what
part-
happens.
Also, I feel one thing I do feel confident about and good about is I feel confident that unlike California, at midnight tonight, we're going to know the winners of these primaries, unlike California. And that's something for us to be proud of, I guess, but proud of or at least not embarrassed about. The fact that California's politicians are not incredibly ashamed for how long it takes for them to count votes is really
I always
awful.
thought that Andrew Cuomo would have made a good challenger against Schumer. I always thought that Andrew Cuomo should have held off from running for mayor after he lost the primary, or even before he entered the primary, right?
Right.
He should have challenged. He should have, geared up and used all his money to take Schumer out, because Schumer is too far. First of all, I think he's just been there too long. He's been serving for too long. We need new blood. We need someone that really thinks today, not yesterday, right? Someone that could work with the White House, someone that could bring the resources New York needs, right? And the elections today are going to impact the U.S. Congress. We need to make sure that we keep the House, right? We should have had better, stronger representation in certain areas with Republican candidates.
Well, you were
in
telling
New
me
York.
off the air
Yeah.
that you think that Republicans should have really backed a strong name against AOC in one of these elections. They're not doing it this year.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think the GOP on a national level really cares that much about New York and New York politics. I think that they should have supported, right off the top, any good candidate, Republican candidate, to run against AOC. I mean, she dethroned a legend, in her district,
Joe
right?
Cali, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So someone could take her out. I don't think that we get enough support. The GOP doesn't put enough effort in bringing good candidates to run against these left-wing Democrats
Well, I
or
have
the
good
socialist
news.
Democrats.
I mean, I have good news for the Republicans. Again, just what we were just talking about. As much of a lost cause as many Republicans might think New York is, at least it's not California. At least it's not these mail-in ballots coming in weeks after the election and deciding it. It's if you can put up a strong candidate and really get a groundswell of people, you have a chance. I don't think they have a chance in California until they change the campaign law.
Is the DOJ looking into these California
Yes.
laws and,
Yes.
and the election?
They're doing more than
it is
that.
ridiculous.
They went into Skid Row late last week to start to interview these homeless people and the drug addicts there to ask them if they had been paid to fill out a ballot, which of course is illegal, whether they had filled out multiple ballots. How far this goes, I don't know.
Okay, let's say that's the case. What are they going to do?
Yeah.
Rewind the elections?
Yeah, I
Start
mean-
the elections all over again?
Yeah,
I mean,
very
that's
hard.
what should be done. If there's fraud involved, they should basically redo the elections.
Yeah. But unless there's a groundswell of people, unless you get large numbers of voters protesting outside of City Hall and outside of, it's not going to change.
The other big story we had last night is President Trump put out a tweet last night. Another tweet, a different one. But he puts out a lot of tweets.
And this is on Truth Social?
And let's see, I'll tell you, it's about Chicago.
Oh, yes.
He says, at least 39 people injured, and 4 dead in Chicago. Was it last weekend?
Over the weekend, yes.
Yeah, and Governor Pritzker he's not asking for help.
He's more than that. He's pushing back against it. And by the way, it's not just a left.
Do we have the tape from last night from
Blagojevich? Yeah, and they do
Governor
have it.
Blagojevich. Why don't we play it?
Yeah, you can play that, and this is him talking about Trump's offer to send the National Guard in. Okay, you can play.
Joining us now is Rod Blagojevich, the former governor of Illinois, and Governor Blagojevich. This is horrible. They just put out some of the numbers. 38 people shot, 7 killed just this weekend in Chicago. That's like a typical weekend in Chicago. And President Trump says he wants to take over Chicago. He said, "Just ask me, say the word." But JB Pritzker says everything's fine. What do you make of these numbers? And the summer's just beginning.
The summer's just beginning. It's going to be a long, hot summer. Here we go again. It's deja vu all over again. This happens every summer. And every summer when President Trump offers Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson help, they turn them down. They have a right to dislike President Trump if they want. They have a dislike. They have a right to, say the things they say about him, even though they're mostly very wrong and terrible things. But they don't have a right to turn down help. They have a responsibility to protect the public. And in this particular case, virtually every one of those murders and the shootings are black. And Black Lives Matter, except to these Democratic politicians. Black Lives Matter only for votes, not when it comes to protecting them. And when I think about my next door neighbor, who actually I like, not hypothetically, let's say I didn't, and my house is on fire, and my next door neighbor who I hypothetically don't like, even though in reality I like, just in case he's listening, but he probably isn't. But if you
Should we call him?
Everybody listens to this.
Do we need to call him?
Well, just if you call him, make sure you tell him I like him. But hypothetically, if I didn't like him and my house is on fire and he offers me a garden hose, am I going to turn it down or am I going to put my fire out? And that's what we have here. And they are so hyper-politicized that they continue to turn down an opportunity to save lives, and it's sickening. And now we have some of these left-wing activists in Chicago calling press conferences, telling President Trump literally to shut up, just send us the money. That's what they're saying. Just send us the money. And so the money goes into the more of these worthless non-profit groups that do nothing to prevent violence, but instead they lunch up the taxpayer's dollar and get rich.
Yeah, it's pretty pathetic. Vito Fossella with us, Staten Island Borough President, former congressman.
Rod,
with him. Hi, Vito.
Hey, Rod. It's good to hear your voice, and I had the pleasure of serving with Rod when he was in Congress as well. And this is like Groundhog Day, right? We wait for June to come, and we wait for the slaughter to occur in the streets of Chicago. What do you think needs to happen? The first number 1, 2 steps. Otherwise, we're going to see dozens and dozens killed by the end of come Labor Day.
Well, they're going to do what they always do. They're going to be pointing fingers at Trump for whatever, different ways that they do it. And they're going to do the usual thing. They're going to call press conferences to say, we need gun control. That's what they're going to do. And they know they can't pass any of it in Washington, but it's all a show. It's a dog and pony show. In the meantime, the politicians here in Illinois, the Democratic governor, the Democratic Mayor Johnson, by the way, it's very different from Democrats like me when I was governor, Democrats when he was governor. We were pro-police. They're going to not have the backs of the police. Know they don't have their backs, and they know that they're outnumbered and outgunned gangbangers. And it's demoralizing and disheartening because it's so hyper-politicized, and it's disgraceful. You serve government. One of the rewarding things about that is that you can actually do good things for people. But today's politicians, not all of them, but today's Democrats in Illinois, I'll put it that way, our 2 leaders, the mayor and the governor, all about politics and bashing Trump and not anything about helping people.
They got their priorities out of whack. Governor Blagojevich, here's Judge Weinberg.
Governor, good to talk to you again. So let me ask you this question. What is the track record of success that Governor Pritzker can run on as he launches his campaign for the presidency of the United States? Because I can't find anything that he's done that's productive and helpful to the people of Illinois.
Oh, boy, Judge, I know. And, there's so much to say about how poorly he's run Illinois. You know, more than 51 taxes and fees have been raised in our state. Crime rates are up. Taxes are up. We're about to lose the Chicago Bears, who have joined other big businesses like Citadel, Boeing, Caterpillar. It's shocking to think that, you know, he's got really anything that he could run on other than the fact that he seems to make it his livelihood to just oppose Trump every step of the way. And I think in the final analysis, that sort of stuff at some point comes back to bite you. But I'm not too optimistic about the chances of the Republican candidate to win here, because the state has unfortunately become a little bit too Democratic. And I kind of some of the responsibility for that, because I was the first Democratic governor in 26 years to win. Looking back, I have several reasons, Judge, to which I never did win, not the least of which is I created this environment where Democrats win in Illinois. But, of course, worse than that, my term as governor didn't end exactly how I would have liked to have ended.
Well, you got a raw deal, and we love you, Rod Blagojevich. You are the best. And you guys, what do we all stand for? Will you join us, Rod, on this one? You ready? Truth, justice, and the American way. Thank you, Rod, so much. And everybody, God bless New York, God bless America, and God bless Chicago.
Sid and Friends in the morning on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
People are away, school's out, and that's when you hold these incredible primaries. But also, we're still talking about this crime situation in Chicago and the refusal by Governor Pritzker for any help to stop the carnage of people, specifically on the South Side. Joining us right now, an interesting person to talk about this with, Jania Butler, former congressional candidate, urban expert now. And Jania, I mean, I'm sorry. The South Side of Chicago, my family's been there since 1840, okay? I'm a seventh-generation American.
A Jew in Chicago?
Yeah, Germans.
Germans
came in the 1840s.
Really?
Yeah, yes.
Wow, we learn new stuff all day.
And my great-great-grandfather was a big mobster, by the way. His name was Morris Eller. Also, and then became a politician, so maybe the same.
You're all over the place.
I'm all over the place.
My God.
But all kidding aside, the South Side has been written off for like 100 years almost, really, a really long time. And Jania Butler, I'm sorry. If I were a mayor or a governor of a state where there was this kind of carnage, 40 people about shot and 9 or 10 of them passing away, I would take any help I could get. This has got to be the biggest slap in the face to people who live in these areas.
It is, and it's a slap in the face to the African American community. The people on the South Side, because they want help, right? And it's not happening. And why is it not happening? Somebody doesn't care somewhere along the lines, because the mentality of the people, a lot of the kids are homeless. And, when you're in Chicago, you actually go across the train track. And then when you go across the train track, it's like horrendous. It's like scary. It's like dark.
That's where the term comes from, wrong side of the track.
Exactly. I went over there. I was like, oh, my God.
That's right.
And so, but... with Brandon Johnson, Mayor Brandon Johnson, taking the helm, I think they just try to overlook it because we've already kind of been written off as a community. And I think that this is an underutilized community. And I think that we need to put this community back in the game and start focusing on what they can be instead of just watching them kill each other every weekend.
Jania Butler, I'll say another thing. No incentive. These gerrymandered by racial categories districts have led to a complete disenfranchisement of most black voters in this country, potential voters. And that is why I've been saying it. I've been saying on this station for a couple of weeks now. The Supreme Court decision knocking down race as a reason to gerrymander a district, I think, could be the most liberating thing for black people in this country since the Civil Rights Act of 1964, because suddenly black people will no longer be a foregone conclusion. You have all these people dying in your district. I guarantee you that congressman or woman knows they're going to get reelected, live or dying. They're people living or dying. Suddenly, black people are going to become swing voters in a lot of states in this country, hopefully in Chicago too.
And we would actually love that. But right now, like you're saying, what's happening is that people are trying to keep jobs, right? So they are just looking to, be, the congressman in that black seat, right? You got mad at Trump for saying black jobs, but then as soon as you took away a black seat, right? It was something totally different in the whole conversation. But yes, there needs to be an urban reset across the board, and we need to look at and be able to be open to something it's just not working. The Congressional Black Caucus, when it started, I think that it started for the right reasons and the right things. But now the people are being manipulated across the board. You know, the black vote is being manipulated, and they're not even teaching the community what they should be doing, how to organize, how to do anything. So, yeah, I think that it's okay.
Now, in the black community, the Democratic Party has changed since Barack Obama, and I don't understand why. Number one, before Barack Obama, Bill Clinton was president, the Democratic president, and 70%, 80% of the Democrats loved America. Now, post Barack Obama, post Joe Biden, 29%, was it 29%, Jake?
Yeah.
Of the Democrats love America. What the heck is going on here?
Listen, I'm not a Democrat, but I can say that, you know, there's definitely a change. And then again, even with Barack, nobody knew that so many people were going to jump out, right, and go to vote, right? And just, it was the largest number of people to go to vote. And so that shows you that the people are paying attention, right? And I always say that the fact that the people are disconnected from the voter base is they're somewhat smart. They're saying, you're not engaging me, you're not doing anything, I'm not going to vote, right? And so, but the Democrats have used that now to their advantage. They're not going to get up. Just as long as they don't go vote for a Republican, we're okay. And we'll keep our jobs. And the few people that do go out and vote, the few people that do support us, we'll keep our jobs. We'll stay in power. And it's more about fighting, you know, a black and white fight than it is changing these communities. And we just need a total urban reset across the board.
And the other thing is, we're trying to push, you know, especially federal elections. And you ran for Congress in the federal election. One American, one vote versus
no illegals. We don't want to
no illegal voting
and no massive mail-in balloting. Please. It's not a secret ballot. How do we know that people? Again, it's a long story.
Well, and that's because they're starting to realize that the black community may change the party, right? So if the black community wakes up, which we're doing, they're starting to vote Republican. And now who's going to vote Democrat, right? Because if the black community comes out of the Democratic Party will never win again.
You know, you mentioned the Congressional Black Caucus, and I had experience. I interned for 3 years for Congressman Floyd Flake, the former congressman in the Jamaica area, Reverend, who went back to full-time running that church. I can tell you the only issues we were pounding were economic. Mm-hmm. And, you know, if you go to Jamaica today and you see all these nice stores now and the building up, thank Floyd Flake, because he was what was the committee he wanted to be on? Was it he wanted to be on the banking committee. Right. And he got pretty high up in the banking committee in his few terms in Congress. And then Gregory Meeks is kind of basically, you know, in his chosen successor all these years he's been there. But you got to thank Floyd Flake for that. It was all about economic opportunity, not arguing about some of this other stuff that just didn't have anything to do with anything. You go to this election now here in Harlem, and you have one candidate, Darlisa Chevalier, all she is talking about Israel and how she hates Israel. What does that have to do with the fact that people want jobs, people want better transportation, and people want the end of shootings in their neighborhoods?
Well,
Nothing.
See, what's really happening is the people really don't know how to engage this population. They see that this is a population that may be manipulated, right? And so, like, I worked on Rikers Island, homeless services, youth services, and understand that this population will do the right things. But now when you have a whole bunch of people who don't know how to engage the population, who don't know what the population wants, and don't even care, at the end of the day, they again want the job. They just want to be in, like, you know, they want to now come in with this socialist mentality and say, oh, yeah, this community will take it. We'll tell them that we're going to give them free stuff and they'll go along with it.
You know, Jake, Ms. Butler, by the way, thank you for joining us today.
Live in the studio, by the way.
Yes.
We should make that clear.
It's very important to note that you have over 800,000 Hispanics in Chicago versus less than 800,000 blacks in Chicago. So the war on crime isn't just blacks, okay? It is Hispanics as well. A lot of immigrants have, you know, after 2016, flooded into Chicago. So we need to understand that the violence is only going to stop when our government, incarcerates anyone that gets caught with an illegal gun. If you have a mandatory sentence of 5 years for anyone getting caught with an illegal gun, you will see that crime will drop dramatically, right? Because all you need to do is get caught with an illegal gun. It doesn't mean that you use the gun, but if you're carrying it, it means that you want to use the gun and you're going to intend to use the gun.
And we've done it before.
Yeah, but
successfully. We got rid of it. 2 presidents back to back, Clinton and Bush, did something very smart. George W. Bush. Instead of going after the physical guns, they focused on the people who are most likely to have an illegal gun. In fact, George W. Bush increased that budget, and there were a bunch of new assistant U.S. attorneys who were hired. A friend of mine was one of them, who specifically just went after, instead of saying, let's go after the physical gun, which is ridiculous, let's go after the people who are most likely to be criminals using an illegal gun. And it worked. It worked, Fernando. So you're exactly right.
Jake, listen, in the state of New York, there was one governor that stood up to crime and criminals, and that was George Pataki. Okay, he signed into law that if you get caught with an illegal gun in New York, 3-year mandatory sentence. And guess what? Between him and Giuliani, they brought shootings and crime and gun-toting criminals. They brought it down to a record low. Now it's way up again. You know, we hear that crime is down in New York, but, you know, when you hear 4 kids getting shot in Harlem, another 5 getting shot in the Bronx, and this happens daily.
Yep.
You know, where is crime? Crime is still there. The use of illegal guns is still there. So in Chicago, you know, the governor there and the mayor there need to allow our president to bring in the National Guard in order to reduce crime. That's the bottom line.
Well, listen, maybe hire a few extra policemen. Mm-hmm. The National Guard should not be used unless it's really, really emergent. But normal course of business, I think you bring in state troopers or you bring in, law enforcement.
Yeah, but when the president wants to get involved, is because it's critical. Trump doesn't want to send guards everywhere.
Trump cleaned up, what was it, Washington, D.C.?
Or New Orleans.
And they cleaned up New Orleans.
Yes.
They cleaned up, what was the Tennessee town? Memphis, yes.
So if he cleaned it up there, he can clean up Chicago as well.
But you know what it is? You know what it is? It's the minorities that are hurting. The Democrats saying, we're representing the minorities.
They're not.
But that's a lot of crap.
It is. And we're the ones paying the price.
How many black kids have died in Chicago the last 3 years? I mean,
and everybody's just crying about it.
Yeah.
And
the people themselves
right.
are crying about it. I'm crying about it, because I'm the chairman of the Police Athletic League, and I worry about those kids in our inner cities. I mean, I really have a heart for them. When I ran for mayor in 2013, I remember there was a black preacher, and I saw him the other day when we did 100 Black Men. Mm-hmm. Me, Governor Patterson, and David
Demetrius Carolina.
Dominic Carter did it, and we did the 100 Black Men thing, and that preacher was there. From Staten Island.
Demetrius Carolina.
The minister from South Staten Island.
Yeah, that's his name, Carolina.
Carolina, really?
Yeah,
he was a nice man. Nice man. And I remember somebody asking me a question because I'm in Staten Island. You're a Republican liberal? Yeah, I said, I worry about the kids in the inner city. What's your problem?
Yeah, it's called being a human being.
It's being a human being.
Yeah, Jania Butler, former congressional candidate here in New York and urban expert. I'm going to give you a couple of statistics and talk about how mixed up we are in this country.
And we have an additional visitor here.
Yes, and Judge Weinberg is here as well in the studio to help us with our law and order heavy hitters. But Jania, black people are 12 times more likely to be a victim of a crime. They're also 5 times more likely to be arrested for a crime. But the Democratic Party and the politicians on the left only want to talk about that second statistic. What kind of maniac cares more about the arrest rates than the victimhood rates of their own people? That, to me, is where things start to get really mixed up.
And I think this is a great time for the Republican Party to do a nice outreach, projects on this because, the people want to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, but then you have, the Democratic Party standing over top of them. You better not. Those people are racist over there. You better not go over there. They want something. They want you to work. They want you to live your life. They want you to be more than you are. And so you have that over our heads. And it's really hard to get out. It's really hard to move in that way, and they've abused us.
Yeah. Judge Weinberg, starting with Mayor Wagner in this city back in the 50s, the Democrats started this incredibly stupid policy of thinking that going soft on crime would help minorities. But again, it's the opposite. It's really hurt minorities because they are much more likely the victims of everything from the broken windows to a murder. When you got into the legal system and to the criminal justice system, was that still the philosophy? Oh, we'll help the minorities by pulling the cops off the subways, which of course didn't do that.
Well, when I got to City Hall, when I was the general counsel to the city council, we had a crisis, and Mayor Dinkins was the mayor, and the headlines on the tablets were "Dave, do something." People were being killed by drive-bys. Guns were prevalent in the street. So Speaker Vallone created something called Safe Streets, Safe City, which got more cops on the street, more social workers, more drug counselors, more court officers, more DAs, more legal aid lawyers, more clerks. So we put that all together to give Giuliani the army.
And he didn't defund the police, Judge? I mean, isn't that what? I mean, I'm just kidding, but I mean that now from the left we hear defund the police.
It's ridiculous.
Like that's an answer to our problems.
The answer, if you want, that's the answer to break down civilization and have total chaos. You absolutely, positively have to have police.
So who's doing this, Judge? I mean, who in the Democratic Party is doing this?
Well, listen, you have the radical fringe that pushes it. All the so-called bail reforms, which are total consumer fraud, were gone along with by Speaker Hastie and Stuart Cousins, the majority leader of the Senate, and that caused a great handicap to law enforcement. De Blasio, on the stop and frisk, De Blasio had a situation where he could appeal and have reversed a very bad decision by the U.S. District Court judge. He didn't do it. He yanked that out. So you have a combination of a culture that says politically, everybody's being arrested because they're minorities, rather than focusing on what you focus on, which is the cops. Cops protect everyone, and especially in minority communities, because that's where the violence is. So when you talk about arrest records, understand where the crime is. They are the biggest victims of all, of the gangs, of the cartels, of the drug dealers, of the guns on the street. It's a stupid mentality. It's self-destructive. It leads to chaos.
Virginia Butler, I want to give you the last couple of minutes we have here, and just by asking a question, would the people in these communities welcome more cops? And in the case of places like the south side of Chicago, would they welcome the National Guard? I'm not talking about the community organizers. I mean the actual mothers and fathers in these areas.
I don't want to say they wouldn't welcome the cops, right? What they're welcome is the opportunity, right? The opportunity to be a part of America, the opportunity to be a part of the American dream, to where as though that they feel like in their communities that they're surviving, right? So they feel like, they got to go out, like in New York when the summer starts, a lot of shootings happen, and these are the younger kids. So yes, the older people, and now even the former gang members are saying, this is not the right way. And I think that it's not so much the police as it is the opportunity to say, this is the way. This is the pathway. Let me take your hand. I've had people that have done 20 years in jail for a murder now, working for BRC, Bowery Residence Committee, as case managers, as, real people, by just showing them the way, right? The way that they're being shown right now, and they're being hovered over and not, allowed to see the bigger picture. It's all cops, it's all cops, it's all cops. But I think that if we show them the opportunity, and I just want to express that this is the Republican opportunity for outreach and to utilize this community so we can be strong as America.
Yeah. Well,
Miss Butler,
we got a break though.
Okay,
Fernando.
Let's take a break. We'll be back.
Okay.
Right back.
Okay,
right, we'll be right back. Thanks.
This is
Sid on Sports.
sponsored by Peerless Boilers on 77 WABC.
Justin Ellick here with your sports update, sponsored by Pete Morgan and Peerless Boilers. Go to peerlessboilers.com to find a deal near you. Peerless Boilers, the world's best built boilers out in Detroit. Yankees lost 5-3 to the Tigers in the opener of a 3-game series, good for their third loss in a row and fourth in the last 5. They still have the best record in the American League, 46-31. Starter Garrett Cole wasn't very sharp, allowing 5 runs and 9 hits in 4 1/3 innings. He struck out 5. New York got a run in the second when Jose Caballero walked, stole second, and scored on Ali Sanchez's double. Sanchez, a backup catcher, then exited in the 7th after being hit on the left wrist by a pitch. Ahmed Rosario homered 2 pitches later to make it 5-3. Up next for the Yankees, the lefty Carlos Rodon will get the start in tonight's middle game of this 3-game series against the Tigers. First pitch from Detroit is scheduled for 6:40 p.m. The Mets got postponed last night for their opener against the Chicago Cubs in the first of a 4-game set. They'll make that up tomorrow in a split doubleheader. Tonight, they'll try again, I should say, out at Citi Field. Kodai Senga will get the start in the opener of that 4-game set, 7:10 p.m. start there. And to the NBA, the Milwaukee Bucks are trading franchise icon Giannis Antetokounmpo and Bobby Portis to the Miami Heat for 4 players, 3 first-round picks, including number 13 in Tuesday's NBA draft, 1 pick swap, and 1 second-round pick. Big blockbuster moves the 31-year-old Antetokounmpo down to South Beach. And we're looking ahead to Thursday night, 10 p.m. from Los Angeles. Team USA picking up their group play in the World Cup, 2-0 thus far, and they'll meet 0-2 Turkey come Thursday night from LA. That is your sports, sponsored by Pete Morgan at Peerless Boilers. Go to peerlessboilers.com to find a deal near you. Peerless Boilers, the world's best built boilers. I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
Sid and Friends in the morning on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
All right, coming up on Sunday, June 28th, right around the corner, my friend Steve Maglio does a great job. He's a very, very great entertainer. He sings Sinatra like you think you're listening to Frank Sinatra, but he's got great stories. He tells jokes. He's a great entertainer. And he's got his 3rd annual anniversary show coming up, I should say, at the Cutting Room, which is a terrific place. It is Not Just Sinatra, starring our friend Steve Maglio, who I saw recently. Well, actually, the last time I saw him perform was at Bo Dietl's Christmas party. He was great there. Great. So, Steve, congratulations on another big show coming up next Sunday.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You got it, pal.
You're really part of it because you had me on when I had my opening night, and then you had me on for the 1st anniversary and the 2nd anniversary, and this is the 3rd anniversary, and you've been helping me every year. I really appreciate it.
This has become tradition, Steve Maglio with Sid Rosenberg, and people love it. They show up in big numbers, and Nunzi and all of our buddies, they're there every time, and they love it too. So for folks that have not seen it or have not heard you before, because we do get new listeners every day, what can they expect when they come to the Cutting Room next Sunday?
The Cutting Room is like going to one of the old-fashioned Copacabana-type shows. You come in, you sit down at a table, you have dinner. We have a comedian opening up every show, and then we have a 12-piece orchestra with a conductor, and it's not just Sinatra. So we do Frank, but we also do Dean Martin, Tony Bennett, Bobby Darin, Elvis, the Beatles, Stevie Wonder, Neil Diamond. We mix it all up, and it's a great time. We do it once a month, and every month is a completely different show, different songs, a different comedian. So you can come every single month and never see the same show twice, which is what we hope people do, by the way.
That is fantastic. Well, how many songs would you estimate you do during these shows?
About 20.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a good mix, and we make sure that New York, My Way, and God Bless America are in every single show.
Those are the best ones. Well, you know, it's funny.
Sure we do those 3.
Yeah, the other day when after the Knicks won and we were playing some of the highlights, and for you folks that don't know, my friend Steve here, Steve Maglio, listens to my show every day. So Lou played some highlights, and then he played Here's to the Winners, and he texted me right away. You said, that's a great song.
Great song. It is. And it was perfect. And what happened was, I also do another show at the Carnegie Club every Friday and Saturday night. And I was doing some introductions and everything, and the next song was ready to come up, and everybody started cheering that the Knicks won, So the next song happened to be My Way. So I said, okay, I'm going to dedicate this to the Spurs. And now the end is here. And everybody started laughing. So
that's great. Are you a Knick fan? I know you're a New York guy. You a Knick fan?
Yeah, I'm not a big sports fan, but if I am going to watch anything, it's going to be Yankees, Giants, Knicks, and Rangers. You know, that's it. I live in New Jersey now. I'm from East Harlem originally, and then the Bronx, and now I live in New Jersey for the past 40 years.
New Jersey's a lovely state. I live there, too. I used to live in Tenafly, New Jersey. So when did the whole Frank Sinatra, any one of these guys, Dean Martin, Bobby Darin, all those guys you perform, when did you start doing all that?
I was 8 years old. I moved from Harlem up to the Bronx. And in the beginning, I had to walk back and forth to school by myself for a while because I didn't know any other kids. And I heard a recording of Frank Sinatra singing My Kind of Town. And I would sing the song to myself walking back and forth to school. And then after a couple of days, I figured, I've got to find another song now. So my parents had only one Sinatra album in the house, but it happened to be A Man and His Music, which is a double album with all the big hits on it. So I started to explore that, and that's how I got into Frank. And then I started listening to William B. Williams and on the radio and Jonathan Schwartz, all those guys, and that's how I found Ella and Dean and then Sammy. And when I was a kid, my mother, I had to be to bed at 10 o'clock to go to school. But on Thursdays, she'd let me stay up till 11 so I could watch the Dean Martin show.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
I love it. All right,
and now his daughter Dina is a very close friend of mine.
Oh, she's terrific. She was here, She did shows on the weekends here for a while.
I remember. I used to listen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
she's terrific.
We just went to visit her. She lives in Branson, Missouri. We were just out there to visit in November, I think it was. We spent a couple of days with them.
Branson, Missouri. Did a lot of shows from out there, which is funny you mentioned that place.
Yeah.
So for folks that want to go to this big one Sunday night, again, the 3rd annual anniversary show, Steve Maglio at the Cutting Room, Not Just Sinatra. What's the easiest way to get tickets and make sure you're there Sunday night?
There's links at the Cutting Room website at StephenMaglio.com, or I have a dedicated Facebook page. If you go to Not Just Sinatra on Facebook, there's links for tickets, and there's some highlight videos of some of the past shows. And I also want to tell you, I know you're going to a dangerous part of the world. I'm putting myself in harm's way, too, in a couple of days, because I'm going to be in Massachusetts. So you're going to be in direct line of fire to the Islamic terrorist missiles. But I have to sing New York, New York in Boston. So I think I'm going to be in a more dangerous place than you.
I think you are, too.
I got to put on a bulletproof vest and a football helmet before I get on the stage.
That is very funny.
I'm thinking maybe I'll do Sweet Caroline before New York, kind of soften the blows a little bit.
That is funny. Yeah, they're up on New Yorkers there in Boston. There's no question about it. Well, listen, happy anniversary, Steve, and the show's going to be great because they're all great, and everybody's looking forward to seeing you Sunday, the 28th at the Cutting Room, Not Just Sinatra, 3rd anniversary. Congratulations, Steve. Great job, my buddy.
Get home safe and sound. I love you, Sid.
I love you, too. Thank you so much. Steve Maglio right there. Check him out Sunday night, June 28th, The Cutting Room, 3rd anniversary show, Not Just Sinatra. More of the Sid and Friends in the Morning show right after these words.
Sid and Friends in the Morning on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Jania, we want to speak to you. You use these last few minutes with you to again remind people this is a primary day here in New York City. You can't rely on the other radio stations and other media because they're suppressing it. This is I understand it's a Tuesday in the middle of the summer, and it's still a lot of key races today. And Jania, this is actually a big report card day, the first big report card day in a lot of ways politically as far as endorsements go for Zohran Mamdani. He's got 3 congressional races where he's made endorsements.
Yeah, and I think, and for me, the fact that he's going into Harlem and trying to, again, to me, it's like you're trying to disenfranchise the community even more because you know that the people are not paying attention. You know that people don't understand what socialism means and what that means to them in the long run. So you're trying to go, like he, tries to tap into hip hop and tries to use the power of all these things to push the socialist agenda. And I'm scared. He scares me because, even like the woman who won in Washington, D.C., the socialist, she won the primary in Washington, D.C. They have a larger plan across the board, and we have to really pay attention. And I've been, knocking on doors to wake people up in the sense of, don't just trust him because he's saying that he's going to give you a free bus or free groceries or something like that. We're so much bigger. We're so much better than that. And that's not what we need in this country.
So 3 congressional races. One is this one in Harlem, mostly in Harlem, also the Bronx, where a long-serving incumbent, Adriano Espaillat, is being challenged by this very far-left Democrat socialist, Elisa Chevalier. Not only is this socialism socialism is just going to create more poverty. It's not going to create any wealth for these people, for anyone, but also taking away seniority. I mean, this is a guy with 4 or 5 terms under his belt. Now, even if she wins, they're going to be back down at the bottom of the ladder, even if the Democrats take control of the House. So that's another thing to consider. Now, then there's also this race mostly in Brooklyn, Dan Goldman against Brad Lander. Mamdani has endorsed Lander. He's expected to win in a rout in this primary. And then there's also Reynoso, also in Brooklyn. Is it Antonio?
Yeah, Antonio Reynoso.
Reynoso against Claire Valdez. And Valdez is Mamdani's nominee, endorsee, and she's expected to win.
Is there any Republican primaries?
I mean, Republicans aren't even mentioned.
Not really
in this
contested.
election.
Not really contested. Yeah. But there are Republicans up for re-election because everyone in the House is up for re-election. Like Mike Lawler. Now the Democrats are targeting his district to try to defeat him. That's up in Westchester and further north. But he's not challenged in the Republican primary today. That's not a primary issue for him. But we'll find out. He'll find out who he's going up against today.
Yeah, it's a general election thing. I agree with Ms. Butler. I think that the disenfranchising of our community is being done very intelligently. Just yesterday, the mayor announced that he was going to tell every city agency to make sure that their employees don't suffer from heat, right? People, he's pulling triggers where people feel that he's doing something for them. And then he does it in such a charismatic way. What worries me is the way he delivers the message. People love his smile. People love his energy. People love what he says, right? But you can't. Socialism is a threat to capitalism. And people that came to America, especially to New York, came here to become a capitalist, right? So he is threatening the well-being of every small business. He's trying to reverse what we have done for many years. Adriano Espaillat, listen, I am a Republican, so I don't pay that much attention to it, but I'm afraid of the socialist movement because you have someone very charismatic that's driving it, and people like it. And that's what's scary.
But New Yorkers are tough. I mean, shouldn't they see through this? Aren't they shouldn't they see through a smile?
They're not seeing through that. They're seeing a smile.
Exactly.
They see smiles. And the Democratic Socialist Party hires actors.
Exactly. John gets it. John, you know what? When you look at Instagram, I say that the mayor has to spend half his time recording Instagram clips.
Yeah.
Because he is there every single day, every single minute with a new clip, with the smile, with the delivery that people love.
Does he do a take 1, take 2, take 3?
He does it so much he doesn't do takes anymore.
Well, we were at the Inner Circle dinner.
He employed some of the best to ever do it when it comes to social media.
What's it costing the city?
A lot. But like a lot of people that were on his transition team, those were the people who got out. And you got to understand, like I watched who he got to move his message along, and he employed the best of the best that know how to market, that know how to use this to that 10th power.
Listen, he get the money for that.
Ms. Butler, our community, blacks and Hispanics, are all about affordability.
That's right.
And the fact that he wants affordability is good, but not on the backs of those that are working tirelessly to build a small business.
The larger problem
and create employment.
Fernando, a larger problem is affordability is a nice cliche. What policies lead to affordability? Which policies destroy affordability? Everything he talks about in terms of affordability will destroy affordability. When you have rent controls, you destroy the housing market. make housing more expensive for everybody. It's a disincentive to build, to maintain your buildings. The greatest failure in this city is public housing. What he wants to do, he wants to do more public housing. He has a whole gambit to take over the private sector on housing. And he's going to say because they were bad landlords. The worst landlord in the city, in the history of the city,
is the city.
It's the city.
Is the city. They're the worst. And every time they try to do this and they make it impractical for landlords to maintain the properties or to build, then you have the Bronx is burning, which destroyed the minority communities in the Bronx because people abandoned their buildings. It's an economic disincentive for housing. So he has these clear expressions. He's totally packaged from Hollywood. His mother is a big Hollywood producer. They're the ones who taught him how to walk, how to talk, how to smile, do his routine. All he is a piece of walking theater. AOC, by the way, is a piece of walking theater, too, because what they did is they did a whole launch to find somebody who was relatively attractive and articulate to become the spokesperson for the movement. The Democratic Socialists of America is a Marxist/communist agenda. They are taking over the Democratic Party. They've taken over the major cities. Now they're moving on to Congress. What Mamdani has done by targeting these 3 seats is his effort to expand Democratic Socialists in America. They want to abolish the Pentagon. They want to abolish ICE. They want to have the Congress control everything, diminish the powers of the Supreme Court and the presidency. This is a clear-cut agenda. They infiltrate the communities. They've taken over the cities. The fact of the matter is we're a divided country because the cities are crazy blue and the rest of the country is not. And so you have a divided country, and the Democratic Socialists are pushing for this. And why do they want to abolish the Electoral College? Because then they win by a simple majority where the cities win. That's why Hillary Clinton is playing crybaby these days. Abolish the Electoral College. You abolish the Electoral College, you're talking about one of the fundamental precepts of this constitutional system.
Jania, and the people in these urban areas lose. I mean, one of the things they want to do is, of course, open all the borders. And we were talking about Chicago earlier in the program. It's not just the shootings in Chicago. You know, some of the most compelling video we saw last year and the year before were people from the south side of Chicago, black people, literally shouting at Mayor Brandon Johnson about all the benefits that were going to illegal immigrants, and their communities are still suffering.
And you ask, do the people see through this? The people see another opportunity. They see an alternative. And this is why I keep stressing to the Republican Party that we need to be the alternative. Socialism right now is offering an alternative. The people don't know what that means at the end of the day.
Ms. Butler, we need more support, and we need for the GOP to come to New York and take a stand.
Absolutely.
And support candidates like you, for example.
Absolutely.
Right?
So our
you
next
got no
guest,
support, am I correct?
Fernando, our next guest, we're going to ask about that. George Borrello, a state senator, New York state senator, a Republican, is going to join us after the break, and we're going to put that to him. What are they doing to not give up on these massively populated areas? Just because they haven't voted Republican before, this might be the opportunity, going up against people who are bringing in illegal aliens, not allowing law and order. So that's when we come back.
Sid and Friends in the morning on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I'm Jake Novak with John Catsimatidis, Fernando Mateo, Judge Richard Weinberg, and also now joining us, George Venizelos, former chief of the FBI here in New York.
He was in charge of the FBI for 4 years.
4 years.
Been a great show. I listened in the car for an hour and a half.
Oh, really? Yeah, we have energy. We've had some energy.
Mateo's a superstar now.
Well, listen. Anyone who's on WABC on the Sid Rosenberg show is a superstar.
John, you created another superstar.
That's right.
Another superstar to make
We create, and I'll tell you, Janine Butler, I like
She was
too.
very
good. Yeah, she's
Janine
great.
is wonderful.
She needs to come on more. She's very good.
WABC creates stars.
That's right. It's true.
Absolutely.
Listen, among the 80-year-old women in my neighborhood, I'm a huge star now ever since I started on the station, so I appreciate
Well,
that.
the 80 and 90-year-old women stand online, take pictures with me.
That's right. So there you go.
Listen. Just measure the pocketbook.
That's
Forget
true.
the age. Measure the pocketbook.
As long as they're not hitting me over the head with it like Aunt Esther, that's good. All right.
But John said check appeal, right, John?
Sex appeal.
Yeah.
Some people have sex appeal.
Checks.
John
Other
had
people have sex appeal.
I like
Checks appeal.
We don't have that.
Well, I have good teeth, and they're still mine. On the line with us right now.
Show off.
Yeah, on the line with us right now, Senator George Borrello. He's a Republican state senator from Chautauqua, where I spent the summer, and I lost a lot of my stuff. My mother's still angry about me for losing my stuff at the day camp there. Jamestown, Chautauqua. Listen, all kidding aside, Senator Borrello, we had a guest on, Jania Butler, just now. And Fernando's also saying this. We've got to get the Republican Party to really make an effort with these minority communities. And there may never be a better chance now because the Democrats are giving them socialism and anti-Israel hatred. That's not going to pay the bills, is it?
No, you're correct. And by the way, there have been false promises made to many communities. And, I will tell you this. We have made inroads as Republicans, and I'm chairman of the Senate Republican Campaign Committee. We've made inroads with many communities because it's about quality of life. When you're trying to sell someone on, a Democrat versus Republican, liberal versus conservative, but you've got the Democrats in charge that want to, put in a migrant shelter in your neighborhood or are forcing you, to pay more for less services. That resonates with the communities, and that's the message we're pushing. And I will tell you that Bruce Blakeman, our candidate for governor, he has made this point. He has done better in Nassau County, with the minority communities. I believe he got 37% of the African American vote in Nassau County, which is unprecedented for a Republican. So we can make that case. This is not about politics. It's about quality of life. It's about public safety. It's about affordability. And for the Democrats in charge, affordability is just a word. They've done nothing to make New York more affordable.
But you got to get in there. Senator Borrello, I'll tell you, my favorite Republican New York State congressman of all time, Jack Kemp, and one of his famous lines was, "Don't fear the voters." This is a man who walked those streets and was willing to do that. And when he was the HUD chairman, Housing Urban Development, he created these enterprise zones. He and Charlie Rangel were all over Harlem all the time. Republicans need to be walking the streets of Harlem, walking the streets of the south side of Chicago, showing up. And, President Trump did that in 2016. Remember when he went to Detroit just before I think that helped clinch Michigan for him, actually. We got to walk the streets, right? You got to walk the streets. Jack Kemp, the great New York, again, he ran for president too, great quarterback, but his tenure as a congressman, a Republican congressman from New York, I think was the most impressive.
Well, I agree. And by the way, the Republicans that are making inroads and being successful in blue or purple districts are the guys walking the streets, like Mike Lawler. He's a perfect example of that. He's winning in a district that is more Democrat than Republican. And there are other examples. And it's about selling the message of common sense and quality of life. Ronald Reagan said it very famously, "Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?" Well, in New York State, under Kathy Hochul, I don't know anybody other than a criminal that can say they're better off than they were 4 years ago under the Hochul administration. And that is the case for every New Yorker. And the bottom line is this: we do have to get the message out there. What are the Democrats doing right now? They're deflecting away. They're talking about things that, they want to yell Trump and MAGA and just keep throwing red meat to their base, hoping that they'll ignore the fact that their quality of life has declined, that's now no longer affordable to live in New York State, that they don't feel safe. That more than 50% of New Yorkers in a poll recently said that within the next 5 years, they're considering leaving the state. And by the way, that's not theory, it's reality. People are fleeing the state more so than any other state in the nation. So people have to understand the correlation. What we Republicans have to do, we have to draw that line between your miserable life in New York State and the people that are running it. And that's really the challenge that needs to be taken up by every common sense person, Republican, conservative, independent, and Democrats who feel that the party that they belong to no longer supports their values. Socialism is the lie it's been told for nearly a century. It's never been successful anywhere in the world. And you think some guy that smiles nice and speaks well is going to somehow make socialism work in New York? It's not going to happen.
Well, listen, his smile and his walk, his talk is making it happen. And we need an intervention by the GOP. We need to show a little effort. We can't give up and say, you know what, we don't stand a chance.
But what's the scoreboard? Give us a scoreboard in the state assembly and the state senate on the GOP versus Democrats right now.
Well, 2 years ago, we made a significant gain. We broke the supermajority in the New York State Senate, which means that the Democrats no longer have the ability to override the governor's veto. What you need, though, is a governor with a spine, and we don't have that. Someone who's willing to stand up and say, "I'm not supporting these radical agendas, and I'm going to veto the bills that do." So, Kathy
has she vetoed any bills like that?
She's not vetoed anything significant, but again, this is a sword that you wield as the governor. That's why people have to understand, if you want to restore balance to New York State government, electing Bruce Blakeman, with us continuing to hold where we are and gain ground, we don't need to take the majority back. We just have to prevent them being able to override a governor's veto. So that's where we are right now, and electing Bruce Blakeman will help us restore that. But keep in mind, folks, we also need other people out there speaking the truth. Look, way back when Rudy Giuliani was first elected mayor of New York City, it was by a razor-thin margin. But people said, "Look, I'm a Democrat, a lifelong Democrat, but I don't feel safe walking the streets of the city." So they held their nose, if you will, and voted for a Republican. And then they saw their quality of life dramatically change in New York City. That has to happen again. The people have to decide for themselves that it's not just going to be this visceral reaction to something that's happening in Washington or somewhere else. It's about the quality of life where you live, where you spend your time every day, where your family lives. That's what you have to vote for, not for some national or international issue.
Senator Borrello, you live in Chautauqua County, and I see I can say it finally.
Nice.
It's amazing. It's awesome.
and you know upstate very well. I think Bruce Blakeman can win Nassau County, Suffolk County, Staten Island, maybe, you never know, a few more counties down here. But give us your pulse of upstate, because a lot of people upstate never heard of him, and he's depending on the lieutenant governor he selected, who I don't know, up in, he's a sheriff up in upstate New York?
Madison County, yes.
Tell us about it.
Yes. Todd Hood, an excellent, lifelong law enforcement member. But what I will say is this: Bruce is getting out there. But it's a big state. Geographically, it's a huge state. You've got 62 counties and nearly 20 million people, and he has to shake hands with as many as possible, because when you hear Bruce speak, you understand that he knows he is the guy that can run this state, because he's running Nassau County incredibly well. Voted the safest county in the nation, 1.5 million people nearly. He can do the job. So we are trying to do what we can to amplify that voice. I was with him in my district doing a tour with him, talking about things like being able to harness the natural gas that's under our feet in the southern tier, where we have a high level of poverty, and yet we are importing power from other states and Canada, instead of harnessing the energy that's right under our feet and employing people and creating economic prosperity. That's the message that Bruce Blake.
Can you get the message out? Make upstaters rich again?
We'll take middle class again, by the way.
Yeah, Senator Borrello. But that's the crux of the matter. Do people in upstate New York understand how much of a threat to them somebody like a Zohran Mamdani, who has pushed Hochul to raise taxes, and it's not just on us, it's going to be on everyone in the state? Do they understand how much New York City residents like Yoko Ono are the ones who are stopping fracking from happening in upstate New York? Meanwhile, across the border in Pennsylvania, incredible jobs for 30 years because of fracking. Do they understand that Bruce Blakeman is running to protect them from Zohran Mamdani and these people? It isn't just about, it's another downstate candidate, we don't care. Do they understand how much of a threat this guy in New York is to them? And if they don't, how do you get them to realize this?
Well, what I've been saying to people, the analogy that I'm using is that this is a cancer that has metastasized in New York City that is spreading throughout the state. And it's happening, and we see evidence of that. So that is the message. And that's what really people have to understand. This is a cancer that is spreading misery across New York City, and it's spreading to upstate New York. So the biggest challenge we face upstate is people feel their vote doesn't count. They feel that they're outnumbered by New York City. But that's really not the case. At the end of the day, we vote at a higher percentage outside of New York City than the 5 boroughs. That's just a fact. And quite frankly, that people are not happy with Kathy Hochul, particularly even in the 5 boroughs. Her approval rating is dismal throughout the state. In a state that's more than 2-to-1 Democrats to Republicans, she can't even break 50% in her job approval rating. So that is an opportunity. And it also is a sign of the frustration that we have here in New York State with how things have been governed under one-party Democrat rule. The key is restore balance. I don't care if you're a lifelong Democrat or you're an independent. You should look at your life and decide, do I feel that the government is serving me and my needs? And there's really only one constituency right now that's being served by the policies of the Democrats in charge, and that's criminals. Okay, everybody else, if you're a teacher, if you're a construction worker, whatever you do for a living, tell me how the policies of this governor and the Democrats in charge have made your life better. And the answer is they haven't.
Senator, I have a question for you. Fernando Mateo here. Why doesn't the GOP jump on the affordability bandwagon? People, that can't afford to live in New York are listening to affordability because it makes sense to them, right? If affordability is the trick word, why aren't we jumping on there and just simply saying we can create affordability without hurting the risk takers, right? Without hurting capitalism, because that's what's not being delivered. Affordability, yes, but on the backs of the small business people, on the backs of taxing the rich, on the backs of driving people out of New York, right? We can create affordability without doing any of that. But we are just not doing anything to deliver our message. I'm sorry, but that's a sad story.
The problem is we have to amplify that voice, and we need more people out there. We do. Our Republican conference in the state Senate, we have a platform. We have a plan to cut taxes, to essentially eliminate income tax for people making under $100,000 a year, which is most of the middle class, particularly in upstate New York. We were talking about the fact that the governor is talking about these little tricks, sending you a $100 check. But what is she doing to actually make New York more affordable? We have a plan. Again, lower those taxes, not just income taxes, but taxes on energy, taxes on our healthcare plans, which New York taxes. Everything else that we tax. You look at other states where we are losing our populations to, Florida and Texas in particular. They have no income tax, zero, and yet somehow they have a prosperous economy, and they're able to provide services without an income tax. So it can be done, and that is our platform in the Senate Republican Conference. That we have the ability to make real change and make life really affordable for those folks who want to remain here. But there's no question about it. We have to amplify that voice, and that means more people understanding that this is not the visceral reaction to Democrat versus Republican. This is about how your life personally is, and how and affordability is just a word to the Democrats. Kathy Hochul's idea of affordability is I'm going to send you a $100 check to make up for the thousands of dollars that you're spending every day extra.
Listen, we want the number one item we want in our city, in our state, is law and order. And George Venizelos is here, who ran the FBI for 4 years. But we got to take a break. We got 30 seconds, George.
Well, law and order, especially in New York City, it has to be at the top of the agenda. Because if you don't have a safe city, people are going to start leaving, besides the cost.
And the economics.
And I think the federal government has stepped up and is helping a lot. That's why New York is not as bad as Chicago, because of the federal government.
All right, we're going to take a break now. State Senator George Borrello, thank you so much for joining us from Chautauqua. And remember, as Jack Hem said, don't fear the voters. And don't fear this program. We'll be right back.
Sid and Friends in the morning on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I'm here with John Catsimatidis, Fernando Mateo, Judge Richard Weinberg, and George Venizelos.
Hey, you know what we're supposed to do? Our ratings are supposed to be higher than Sid's.
They are.
Well,
they are.
Oh, we'll find out when Nielsen calls.
If you say it is, right? If
we'll find out.
When Nielsen tells us.
That's right, advertisers. This is your hot ticket.
We have over 1 million. We have almost 2 million listeners around the country now.
I think it's multiplying rapidly. That's why we're against.
And we're going to take over Europe, too.
That's
right.
it. So
Europe has no decent radio.
You can
Everybody
actually take over La Mega.
Before we run out of time, we got
Brian Christine on the phone.
Works for Dr. Oz.
He is the Assistant Secretary of the Health and Human Services Department. Slow summer for you guys. No, just kidding, right? Secretary Chris. This is a lot of things going on. What's the number one focus right now at HHS? Because it seems like, in addition to health crises, also battling fraud is a big part of your agenda, which of course will help our health crises if we can get more money to the people who really need it, right?
Absolutely. The president has made clear that battling fraud and abuse across the country is certainly something that's tremendously important. Huge amounts of money being lost on fraud, taxpayer money. We know here at the Department of Health and Human Services, Secretary Kennedy, along with Dr. Oz at CMS, have really been cracking down on this. I think it's a tremendous win for the country when this happens, when the president leads us forward and Secretary Kennedy advances that agenda, because so much money is lost with fraud and abuse in the healthcare system. So you're right, that's incredibly important. So that's been a big focus. Obviously, we have the World Cup games going on, going to be a tremendous success for the country. There has been concern about with the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Uganda going on. But I will tell you, John, that we are doing everything right to protect American citizens and to keep Ebola out of the United States. I mean, when we first learned about the Ebola outbreak in DRC, in the Congo, HHS was on it immediately. We began sending supplies to that part of the world to help contain the outbreak in that area and to stop its spread to other countries, but most importantly, really focused on preventing Ebola from reaching the United States. That's our main concern. That's the president's main concern, Secretary Kennedy's main concern, and my main concern. We've been using our public health service officers, my commission corps officers over in that part of the world to set up a quarantine facility for American citizens. An amazing collaboration between HHS, Public Health Service, and the Department of War. So again, we're doing everything to keep Ebola out of the United States so that we can enjoy the World Cup event. So you're right, a lot going on this summer.
Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services Brian Christine on the phone with us. It's been an attack on your whole department and your boss, Robert Kennedy Jr., since day one. We've been told that everyone's going to die from all these things that are going to break out because RFK Jr. only wants to kill vaccines. None of that has happened, but they keep trying. The news media making a big deal about this flu outbreak at this military base, and I looked at the numbers, and it's no higher a percentage of flu in that military base than it is in the general population. I mean, how do you continue to fight back against these doomsayers that are really trying to undermine? It's one thing to undermine you guys personally and politically, but this undermines our health, the people, how they feel about their health and what they do about their health. I mean, this is not to be played with, in my opinion.
No, you're exactly right. And listen, from day one, there have been those with the worst forms of Trump derangement syndrome who've attacked the president. And by extension, they're then going to attack individuals in whom the president has placed confidence in, for example, Secretary Kennedy. Listen, Secretary Kennedy, he didn't have to take this job on. He cares tremendously about this country. He cares tremendously about the health of every man, woman, and child. He has done amazing things during his time here as secretary at HHS with our dietary guidelines, with the gender dysphoria in minors report, with the focus he has made on getting Americans healthier, eating healthier food, moving, getting active, fighting obesity. Listen, RFK is a tough man. He can take it. He has courage. Look what he announced, just last week, over $700 million being spent toward fighting addiction and mental health concerns in America. He's been so courageous talking about his own battles with addictions and his multi-decade sobriety. This man is ready for the fight, and he ain't backing down.
Assistant Secretary Brian Christine on the phone, Health and Human Services. Now, let's get to the thing that I know really concerns John.
M&Ms.
The M&Ms. The M&Ms. We're getting healthy M&Ms.
But Amazon is getting them right now in August. But we have to wait for the supermarkets to get them in 2028 or 2027?
Well, I tell you, there's your concern there. There's the pressing issue. But I tell you what this does speak to. This speaks to the fact that since President Trump has taken office and since Secretary Kennedy has been placed as secretary at HHS, we really are focusing on getting America healthier than she's ever been. We're focusing on diabetes. We're focusing on chronic disease, heart disease, obesity. And to your point, listen, this is touching all spectrum, all ends of the American populace and all parts of our culture, focusing on how we need to get healthier, eat better real food, exercise, get active, get moving. This is a movement that can't be contained, and the naysayers can say what they want, but they can't stop our movement, the movement under President Trump, Secretary Kennedy, and myself and Oz and others. We're marching forward.
Sir, this is Fernando Mateo. Excuse that I call you Brian, but I want to one of the messages that has not gone out there is the fact that the president is making the medication affordable. You know, the word affordability has to be used a lot more in this administration because the president is doing and creating situations where the prices are coming down. Okay? And the fact that he selected Secretary Kennedy to lead this, it shows that he reached across the aisle, brought a Democrat into the White House, and put his full faith and effort to make sure that Secretary Kennedy succeeds. So let's talk about all of the affordability programs that the president has also put in place, not just keeping America healthy and making America healthy again, but making America healthy with affordable medication.
Absolutely. You're speaking, of course, about Trump RX. And
exactly.
What we are doing, what the President and Secretary Kennedy are doing and have done and continue to do is linking Americans with the most affordable drug options for prescription drugs and now also generics. Doing everything they can do to lower the cost of health care. That is a daily battle with us here at HHS, lowering the cost of health care for every man, woman, and child. TrumpRx.com is a beautiful example. I'm glad you brought that up.
Let's promote it more. Let's talk about it more. Every American is on medication, right? So let the people know medication is affordable today because of President Trump.
Absolutely. And so forums like this, it's one of the reasons we really enjoy, and I personally really enjoy doing this kind of thing, having these conversations, because this is how we let America know the great things that we're doing in this administration. And Trump RX and the most affordable drug pricing is going to change this country. It's changing it now. It'll change it going forward. No longer are we going to be subsidizing other countries so they can pay low prices. We're paying the lowest prices we can because of President Trump and Secretary Kennedy. Great point, and I'm glad you brought that up.
Admiral, we forgot to give you your military rank. Admiral Brian Christine, Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services, thank you so much for joining us. Please send us our healthy M&Ms as soon as possible. That's our top priority. But all joking aside, thank you for defending this country, not only in the military, but also now against Ebola and some of the other threats. We really appreciate you joining us. This is Sid and Friends in the Morning, the Cats and Company Takeover Day 3. We've got some amazing guests coming up in the next couple of hours. Stay with us.
Sid and Friends in the Morning on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
If you had a chance to see the HBO 2-episode documentary about Billy Joel. And Billy Joel's not even in my top 10 musicians. I respect him a lot and I like a lot of his music. But I thought I knew everything about him. Living on Long Island for so many years, boy, that documentary, I learned a lot.
You know, it's funny. Billy Joel is to Long Island like Bruce Springsteen to Jersey Shore.
Oh, absolutely. Similar home field advantage.
It's the same thing.
Yeah,
it's the same thing. Everybody.
You mean he won't fill up the stadiums in some place else?
Well, he fills everywhere.
Yeah,
so does Billy Joel. Both of them.
Yeah,
both icons.
But
Lou Frino knows how to pick them.
He's on the mend, by the way. Billy Joel, not that long ago announced that he had this brain disorder. I mean, he had some problems with Ed, but he apparently is getting better.
Barry Manilow is coming back, I heard.
Yeah,
oh, Wow.
So some of these guys come in. Listen, the money is in live performances. The record, we talked about Clive Davis. Yeah. Clive Davis died yesterday at age 94, an incredible record mogul, music mogul. Signed a lot of major acts. Speaking of, Bruce Springsteen was one of them. Whitney Houston. We could spend the rest of the next 2 hours talking about all the acts that Clive Davis signed and discovered.
These guys are too new for the judge.
No. Clive Davis is
he goes
time.
back. He goes
Clive
way
Davis,
back.
right after the War of 1812.
Yeah,
no,
real
Clive
New Yorker.
Davis had
New York guy.
Absolutely terrific guy. Poor kid.
Brooklyn.
Went to NYU. Harvard Law School, remarkable guy, mentor and creator of some of the greatest talents. There's a great documentary on him.
Yeah.
It's either HBO or PBS.
And he stayed a New Yorker. I mean, I know he must have had a lot of places he lived over the years in L.A., but he was living in Westchester until his last day. I mean, a friend of mine told me he held court at some restaurant in Westchester constantly. So he clearly was mentally sharp until the end.
That's the history we're losing to a new generation.
Yeah,
they don't know who these people are. They don't know who some of these actors are.
Especially in the entertainment industry. The entertainment industry people, both at the heads of studios and actors used to be working class people. Now, when I look at these actors and these owners of studios, they're all Ivy League guys and not on a full scholarship like Clive Davis was. Clive Davis got a full scholarship to Harvard Law School back when they just started accepting Jews. Let's put it that way. It
Very nice of them.
Pretty nice. So he got a full scholarship to Harvard Law School. But you see these heads of studios now, Fernando. You see these actors now. They're all grew up rich. It's almost like they make movies for themselves. I don't relate. I mean, I want to hear like Louis B. Mayer, who pretended he was born on July 4th and he grew up with nothing. We need people like that running our studios.
Clive Davis was brilliant.
Yeah.
He was not only brilliant, he knew he had the feel for success. He had the ear for success. When he heard a performer like Whitney Houston, he embraced her. I mean, if any of you out there don't know who Clive Davis is, go on Netflix and look up Clive Davis. The guy was a genius,
and not only
brilliant.
That's absolutely. And by the way, he not only was he a mentor financially and professionally, but he cared about these people personally. He did more than anybody to try to save Whitney Houston on the path she was taking to self-destruction. And when she died, his heart was broken.
Yeah.
She's almost like a daughter to him.
And you got to do that. I mean, the babysitting that's necessary when you're in in that management end of show business, where you got to make sure that your star shows up. Yeah. You got to make sure they stay off of drugs. You got to make sure that they're continuing to be creatively challenged. And now when they make so much money, they don't necessarily rely on their managers as much as they should. I mean, Whitney Houston should have been calling Clive Davis more than she was talking to Bobby Brown.
Listen, he paid his artists well. I guess, that's why they stuck by him. That's why they loved him. That's why they cared for him. So, Clive, you lived a great life. Rest in peace. And hopefully, we'll remember
Great
you.
American story. You're not going to have a guy with that kind of a story coming out of Europe. You just aren't. That's not the way it works. You don't go to university in Europe unless you're part of the aristocracy or some political movement. This is a guy who grew up poor in Brooklyn.
True
American story.
True American dream story.
Yeah.
True American dream story.
Really is.
It's true only in America. By the way, something you said about the people who are making the music or making the movies. It's the example of the concept of too much too soon. These kids are making fortunes. They don't know what to do with it. They're self-destructive, and they get taken advantage of. So
listen, when you've had nothing, and all of a sudden you hit the jackpot, and all that money comes in, it doesn't matter whether you're a performer. And athletes, a lot of these athletes, can you imagine? Right. Yeah. Can you imagine growing up poor? And all of a sudden now you're a mega superstar like Juan Soto, for example, earning close to $1 billion for 15 years with the New York Mets. You have Towns, the kid that, he's Dominican. His mother's Dominican. He's black. His father's black. And the kid grew up very modest, very humble. These guys get there and make hundreds of millions of dollars, and if they don't have the discipline, look at Mayweather, for arguing, this guy made over $1 billion. He owes a few hundred million, like $7 million in taxes. Yeah. He bought a watch for $200,000 and his check bounced, according to what we see on Instagram.
Love or hate the NFL. This is something that the NFL has really taken a hold of. If you are a rookie in the NFL, if you've been drafted, they have these mandatory seminars where they bring in people to help you not only learn how to manage your money, but they give you tips on your entourage. Right. There's going to be people hanging out with you. You probably know a lot about this, George Venizelos. Yeah. The entourage that hangs out with you. So they tell you, listen, here's some tips on how to cut down the number of your friends who suddenly come out of the woodwork and hang out with you, because that's where the money goes.
I understand. Major League Baseball is going to have a problem in 2027. They're trying to put on a salary cap.
Yeah, and this is going to cause a strike. Right. There's almost definitely going to be a strike over this.
That's what they're saying.
You know what? These ball players make excessive amounts of money. I don't care. To earn $1 billion over 15 years, I mean, how much jerseys can the Mets sell? How many tickets can the Mets sell? How many hot dogs can they sell?
But listen, Fernando, it's supply and demand. If people are willing to pay, when I moved back to New York, in 1997, you could still get a good seat at Yankee Stadium or Shea Stadium to see the Mets for less than $10.
Wow.
You could. And when I lived here,
I wasn't born during that.
And when I first moved here as a preteen in a little bit around almost high school time in 1981, general admission in the upper deck at Shea was $2. Okay, now people are willing to pay $50 for bad seats at baseball games and $20 for a hot dog. So I understand what you're saying. I agree. It's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money because the demand isn't there. It's a lot of money because no one person can process, especially if they grew up poor, that kind of money overnight.
Jake, Entourage, for example.
Yeah, the Entourage.
Do you know why people know who these guys are on the streets? It's not because they recognize them. It's because of the entourage they have around them. Yeah. All right? I guarantee you that if Jay-Z or any of these guys walked the streets of New York with a baseball cap on, no one would know who they are.
Or we'd leave them alone.
You know, cool. Listen, John Catsimatidis doesn't walk around with an entourage, right? He walks around alone most of the
baseball
time.
cap. Yeah. No, with a baseball cap.
You know, so listen, it's the entourage that gives them up.
By the way, John, I'm offering.
Yeah,
I will follow you with the beatbox, with the boombox playing your favorite songs around the city.
Listen, if Messi walked around New York City,
oh, he's unbelievable.
You know, people wouldn't know who he is.
No,
but the entourage gives it up. And you know what? People that have never had anything love entourages because they want everyone to know who they are.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's where most of their money goes.
Yeah. And a lot of it's TV money now in a lot of those sports.
Yeah. I mean, and the TV money is a problem in Major League Baseball because it's basically making money off of grandmothers and other people who don't realize they're paying for the sports package in their cable bill. You know, if the people really paid attention to their cable bill, Major League Baseball is almost completely funded now by unwitting cable subscribers who are paying for channels they're not watching. I'm a big baseball fan, and yet I don't have the time to watch my extra paid for Mets and Yankees thing on SNY and the S Network.
And plus, the Yankees once a week they're on Prime, Amazon Prime.
Yeah,
you know, try to find the games. They're not all on Yes anymore. They're going to other stations.
The only sports league in this country that has massive demand and it's inelastic. It doesn't matter what the economy is. It doesn't matter what segment of the population you're talking about is the NFL. Yeah. The NFL is America's addiction. If you meet a woman who's a big sports fan, 90% chance she's an NFL fan. If you meet someone who is poor, they're most likely. I mean, it's the one thing that unites this country in a cultural way more than anything else these days. And the NFL needs to do a better job at a lot of things. But I give them credit for the program that they have put in place for years now for these new players who have huge money all of a sudden to teach them the value of money and to teach them how to invest it and to keep these crooks away from them.
And they have a commissioner making $50 million a year.
Yeah, well, you know, and with a wife who defends them online in anonymous accounts.
Listen. Speaking about sports, man, Messi, Lionel Messi.
Yeah.
This guy has scored 5 goals in the last few games.
Yeah.
Okay,
at 38 years old.
38. He's got 18. He's got more goals in I guess in FIFA's history, right?
Yeah,
he's got
and in 18, the World Cup.
In the World Cup, he's got 18 goals. The guy is amazing, you know. But yet, all of the tourists that have come to New York to see him aren't tipping the servers.
Yeah. So we've got this whole situation.
How are the restaurants surviving?
Because Europeans don't tip. I don't know if this is true of Latin Americans and South Americans in their home countries, but in Europe, tipping is not a thing like it is here.
Third world countries don't tip. I'm sorry.
So outside, okay. So
don't they have
outside,
something called service?
They're literally telling people
is included.
Yeah. I mean, outside.
No.
Yeah.
But the question of who gets that money.
Yeah.
So when you go to Europe, they say service is included on your check.
That's
the question is, when it gets distributed, who really gets it?
Yeah. I guess.
Well,
they
get higher salaries.
They get
too.
higher salaries.
They get higher salaries over here.
It's minimum wage plus tips.
Those restaurants that don't include the tip, that don't make it mandatory, their servers are starving right now.
Well, this is a big deal because you've got these bars. I mean, they're working really hard because the bars have been crowded, the restaurants have been crowded, in not everywhere, you know, but in a lot of places. And these people they make their living on tips. And President Trump, of course, remember, he got the no tax on tips thing through.
Yeah, which they don't speak about.
Yeah, which is a huge deal. You know, President Trump has enacted 2 very incredible trickle-up tax cuts, which the world said could never be done. The first was the the doubling of the standard deduction in the 2017 tax bill. Steve Mnuchin had a lot to do with that. It was a trickle-up tax. The Democrats talked about it for years. Trickle up. We want trickle up. Well, that's how you do it. You cut the standard deduction. He doubled the standard deduction, I should say.
And I'm sure they voted against it.
Yeah, I'm sure they all did. And the no tax on tips. But all kidding aside, these Europeans, many of whom are very generous, they're not here to be, but they don't understand. It's a cultural thing. And apparently in other cities where the World Cup games are going on, they've put notices at the restaurants and the bars to remind people that they have to tip here in this country, but they're not doing it here in New York. Maybe it's time to, dust off your printer and print out tipping required at places here.
I think that Mayor Mamdani should grab the bull by the horns and let tourists know, hey, the same way he got the cheap tickets for FIFA for 1,000 people out of 8 million people in New York, which was, dropping the bucket.
That's show business.
It's show business, but it's show.
Tip your waiters, ladies and gentlemen.
Listen, shows sells.
Tip your on-air radio hosts as well. Please send money. We'll be right back. Speaking of tipping, we got to get to our sponsors.
I know an overnight host that we used to have used to
ask for money.
Ask for money.
Really?
And ask. And wait a second. And also ask to be left in the people's wills.
Oh, that's not a bad idea. My name is Fernando Mateo. Please remember me when you die.
And he will take used cars and real estate. We'll be right back.
Sid and Friends in the morning on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
New low on crude oil.
73.27 on crude oil, and the 32nd straight day of lower gasoline prices in America.
Just in time for July 4th, right?
Yeah. You're going to see gasoline prices, hopefully national average, somewhere in the 350s. Hopefully on July 4th. We'll see. That's just for
the big travel weekend, right?
Yeah, biggest, I guess, as far as... Well, I think Thanksgiving might be bigger.
I think Thanksgiving
is a bigger one. In case you're just joining us here on Sid and Friends in the morning, I'm Jake. It's the Cats and Friends takeover. Day 3, as Sid is in Israel right now, and I'm sure Sid knows about this story over in Israel because this is really a shocking story to happen here in New York or anywhere. Sitting Congressman Dan Goldman, who is likely to lose his primary today, although we'll let the voters decide. I'm not going to tell you the poll numbers. Dan Goldman is a congressman representing Williamsburg and Brooklyn, some other areas too of the city. Went to his coffee shop that he's been going to. It's called Poetica Coffee Shop. I think they have 2 locations. One of them is in Williamsburg. They might both be in Williamsburg, but certainly one of them is. And he got a message, we don't want to serve genocide enablers because he's, by the way, when you say Dan Goldman is supportive of Israel, that's a relative term. He's not that much of a supporter of Israel, but he is.
Compared to his opposition.
Compared to Brad Lander, who's gone full Josephus, full Spinoza, full self-hating Jew, Brad Lander. Yes, Dan Goldman is the lesser of those 2 evils. But this is a coffee shop owned by what looks like a Muslim man who has an online history of harassing his own customers, making anti-Semitic and anti-Israel statements, and as our friend John Levine, who now works for the Free Beacon, used to be at the New York Post, John Levine has found owes $400,000 in state income taxes. So the owner of this shop, maybe you shouldn't have been so publicly anti-Semitic here, and we wouldn't have found out. Now that it's been published in numerous publications that you owe $400,000 in back taxes, you're going to have to pay him. Let's put it that way.
And by the way, let's be very clear. When he made that statement that he was not going to allow Dan Goldman or anybody else who's a supporter of Israel who's Jewish, he's violating the civil rights law of the United States, and they should go after him on that.
Well, they say
he's going to need his money. He's going to need his money to
Yeah.
pay for the legal bills when they go after him.
Yeah, and so Harmeet Dillon, speaking of which, Judge Weinberg, Harmeet Dillon, who is our U.S., who's in the Justice Department overlooking civil rights desk there, has said they're looking into this. But here's something that bothers me. And, Fernando, you were talking about people not doing enough of outreach. And, I'm sorry. Where are my fellow Jews? They should be picketing outside.
In Williamsburg.
In Williamsburg.
Guys,
now,
this
listen,
is Williamsburg, the capital of the Jewish community.
One disclaimer.
Williamsburg has changed.
Yeah.
The demographic has changed.
It's changed, but there's another disclaimer there, slight disclaimer. Not that I'm excusing them, but because this makes no difference. But Williamsburg is also a stronghold of Satmar Hasidic Jews who are not generally supportive of Israel. But they understand anti-Semitism. They talk about it all the time. Where is my Jewish community to get out there? They should be. I mean, if this had happened to a black New Yorker or a Muslim New Yorker, I would be willing to picket those shops if they were being refused service. Where is the Jewish community to picket outside this place. And, it happened yesterday, so I give them some time. But this is an outrage.
Do you remember the Korean boycott when Al Sharpton led the in Brooklyn because they thought that the Korean shopkeepers were being disrespectful to blacks? In fact, they weren't, because they didn't understand the Korean culture, which is you don't make eye contact, which is deemed disrespectful. So they had this whole boycott that went on, and a violent demonstration. We were blocking the entrance and the exit to the stores. And to his discredit, David Dinkins did nothing to back the police up on this. You had a Supreme Court judge, Jerry Held, ordered them to have separate back and let the people in and out of the store. Nothing happened. Finally, they broke that boycott. There's a big investigation, and the Civil Rights Commission of the United States condemned the failure of the government to protect the shopkeepers, the Korean shopkeepers. A very big story in its time.
Yeah, so this is the reverse now. Now it's a shopkeeper, apparently, and at least one of his employees, discriminating against someone for, whether it's, then they can pretend it's about being, for their politics, which is outrageous.
And by the way, he doesn't even know Goldman's politics.
Yeah, Goldman is a far leftist.
Right.
Well, there's a big difference on whether the owner did this or whether an employee did this. If an employee did that, he should immediately fire him. And he should apologize, and he should invite Goldman.
It looks like it's the owner, though. It's the owner. Based on his social media account, he's very anti-Semitic and very anti-Israel, and apparently likes to curse out his own customers. He had the FU to one of his customers online, too.
Wait a second. We're talking about shopkeepers and anti-Semitism. How about the mayor of the city of New York, who called people who support Israel, the Jewish community, called them genocidal
and monsters.
You imagine you have 1.5 million Jewish people in this city. Yeah. Other than Israel, it's the greatest population of Jews, and he's calling the people who support Israel monsters, and he goes after AIPAC, which is a legitimate organization. How come he doesn't go after CARE, which is a supporter of Hamas and Islamic terrorism?
There's 1.5 million Jews in New York City. Where were they voting? Where were they when they needed to come out and vote?
Yeah, they need to vote.
Excellent question.
Now I think the trends are. I think the trend. It is an excellent question.
Where are they?
I think the trends are getting better. Maybe not in New York, but we know for a fact that in Pennsylvania, in the swing. So I always say to people when they ask me what about the Jewish vote, and I always tell them there's no such thing because Jews don't really act as a swing vote, but they do for the first time really in my lifetime. In Pennsylvania, this last presidential election for President Trump, in the swing counties of Pennsylvania, the suburbs of Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, where there is a significant Jewish population in both, but mostly in Philadelphia, I have very strong evidence. So don't listen to those reports that say that they voted 80% for Kamala. It's not true. In the swing districts of Pennsylvania, Jews voted for Trump, and that is a big reason why he won Pennsylvania. So it's for the first time in my lifetime, there's actually a swing vote for Jews, and it came through for Trump. But you're right, Fernando, and you're right, Judge. Jews in this city and in this state need to be, and listen, you don't want to support Trump. You don't want to go complete Republican. I understand it. But understand that if you are a foregone conclusion for any party, you lose your traction. You want to be a swing voter. That's the way it should be.
Listen, Mamdani was incredibly smart and surrounded himself with very smart, strategic people. And that's why he won. There are 750 to 1 million Muslims in New York City, making New York City the largest Muslim population. He mobilized them, and they came out and they voted. And they won, and that's why he won.
The one thing that I saw a statistic someplace before, that in the last 20 years, the European countries went from 500,000 Muslims to 50 million.
Yeah. I mean, you can't absorb that. You can't absorb that naturally.
I mean, I can understand having immigration, but that is a big number.
That's more like an invasion.
That's the death.
That's an invasion. Yeah.
That's the death of European civilization.
Yeah,
That's exactly what it is.
You know what the consulates do, like in the Dominican Republic and small countries? When there's a certain population in the United States of that country, the visas come down.
Right.
They reduce the amount of visas that they give to that specific country. Okay. But in New York City, getting back, where was the Jewish vote? when the mayoral elections took place.
I mean, he didn't win the Jewish vote, but he got a significant. he got a percentage of it.
He got the Muslim vote.
He got the Muslim
which
vote.
which is about a 7.
The Jews voted for Cuomo.
By the way, we want to talk about block voting. That's block voting.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And if you don't know what Fernando's talking about, do yourself an educational favor and go to Soundview in the Bronx on any given weekday morning. And it looks like downtown, Addis Ababa. I mean, it's incredible. It's not what you think.
Listen, if you go to any mosque 4 times a day or 5 times a day when they go out to pray, you realize the population. Okay, it's huge. You go to Riverside and 72nd Street in that area there on the Upper West Side. And 5 times a day, you have to either wait an hour to get your car out of the parking spot, or you could never find a parking spot because they take over the entire area. Listen, everyone is entitled to have their praying time. You know, I love Muslim people. I think that they're very good people. But getting back to the voting blocks, as the judge was saying, when you have 1 million Muslims coming out to vote as a block, you can't lose.
Yeah,
and
but
that's
I got
what
news for you.
He mobilized a sleeping bear.
Yeah.
And by the way, let's not forget what they did. A lot of foreign money came into this election all across.
Do we have
which
proof
is
of
illegal.
that?
Yeah.
So why aren't people in jail?
Well, the head of Act Blue is she might be going to jail.
Okay, but let's see some action.
The answer, the answer is you have 3 congressional committees looking at Act Blue. They've revealed the foreign money. When I say foreign money, it's not just coming from out of state foreign money. It's illegal foreign money from foreign countries, as George can tell you. It's a violation of federal law. And now it's being revealed. She took the Fifth Amendment over 100 times. They have a document demand, a subpoena for documents. She's refusing to give them up. She's in serious trouble. And Act Blue has been a conduit for the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I mean, I know the people that did the investigation on that, and they got hundreds of millions of dollars, and every lawyer at Act Blue was taking the Fifth.
Yeah, and by the way, and they left the 2 leading counsels of Act Blue, John, fled like hell when the heat got on, and scared to death.
Let me give you a hint from my intelligence community. You ready for the hint?
Yeah.
When Biden took the oil to $100 a barrel, a lot of oil money got rebated. Part of that $100 a barrel kicked back to Act Blue. Thank you, Joe Biden.
Oh my God! But for those of you who don't know, Act Blue,
you guys want to know the facts.
It's like a website mostly.
You know, and by the way, when I get called on Fox and other channels, I don't get paid for my facts.
Yeah.
But you want to know something? I'm 95% right.
Yeah.
Listen, there was a Haitian rapper. His name was Pras Michel.
Yeah.
Okay, he was arrested. The other day because he raised close to $1 million for Obama from Malaysia.
He
and
started
from
his prison sentence recently. Yeah, he started his prison sentence.
But Obama hasn't been in office for how long?
Yeah, he was from the Fugees. I mean, he was a very big guy.
Okay, how long ago was Obama in office?
Yeah,
Jake?
I mean, it's been more than 10 years since he left office.
And he just
almost 10
he
years.
was just sentenced now.
Yeah, well, listen, these things
10
take
years
time.
later.
But I got to tell you, Act Blue, for those who don't know, it's mostly a website. They have been caught basically identity theft. There are people who looked at their bank statements and saw that they had given 10 donations of $25 each to someone. I mean, this is classic money laundering activity. George, I mean, this must remind you of what you saw at the FBI with drug money laundering.
All I could say, the bottom line is our enemies have successfully divided our country.
With money.
Their intention is for us to beat up each other, and that's what we're doing. Nobody's looking for what's good for America. Everybody's looking for what's good for the party.
All right, let's take a break and figure out how to fix this.
Yeah,
we'll be right back.
Got to stop with this party thing.
Sid and Friends in the morning on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Joining us right now to talk about a very serious issue, though, one that should be on the ballot today, but I don't know if it is the president of the Sergeants Benevolent Association of the NYPD, Vincent Vallalong. Vincent, the greatest anti-poverty program in world history is Law and Order. And yet we've got people running for office in some of these poor districts, places where people are struggling, and all they want to do is bash Israel. I don't really see how that's going to make anyone richer in Harlem and the Bronx.
Well, we're not allowed to invest in any products either. However, they turn around and these people on primary day, meaning the general people in the city, they really need to come out. I mean, this is an extremely important time for voting for the city. Elections have consequences. I mean, we're looking at a number of different races on the state level and the federal level, where socialists are running neck and neck. And listen, even with many moderate incumbents, they're running against moderate incumbents. These individuals are not pro safety. They don't support men and women in law enforcement, and basically all they want is a revolution to destroy our way of life.
Yeah. Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the show? I mean, it's not great. I mean, there was a time in New York, especially in the 80s and 90s, where crime was an absolute bipartisan issue. I mean, I spent my teen and preteen years in Far Rockaway, Queens, on a block that was very diverse. We had Haitians, we had Jews, we had Irish, we had Italians, and everyone was obsessed with lowering crime. That's all we ever talked about. Are you going out tonight? Who are you walking with? I mean, there was absolutely no division about this. And now, I wonder if I walk the streets of the Bronx or Harlem and I'd hear some of these people saying, I want to defund the cops. It's not the people, though, is it? It's the politicians. I mean, I can't imagine people want crime.
It is the politicians. And you know what? Everybody you just described, I describe as New Yorkers.
Right. That's right.
And they're all out for the best interest of the city and the best interest of the community. And the politicians divide everybody. I mean, look what we got. We got bail reform. We got 50A. We got protections for criminals and basically persecutions for the police out of politicians. You know, I mean, you had a former socialist mayor in de Blasio that appointed a judge, you know, that recently sentenced Eric Duran, one of my sergeants, to 9 years in prison for doing his job.
Ridiculous, totally ridiculous. Vincent, this is Fernando Mateo. And first of all, I want to commend you for helping Eric the way, you guys did. You backed him up. And the truth of the matter is Eric should have never been convicted. He should have never been tried. Eric was out there doing his job, trying to save people in that community from fentanyl, from heroin, from all kinds of things. And the fact that he tried to stop a criminal by launching a cooler, his intentions weren't to kill the guy. He didn't say, I'm going to kill the guy with a cooler. If he wanted to kill the guy, he would have pulled out his gun and he would have shot him. As far as I'm concerned, this was an accident. And he should not have gone to trial. He should have not gone to jail. And I would love to have Eric on my show this Sunday between 6 and 7 p.m. Fernando Mateo, no excuses, because people need to hear from him. And if his lawyer wants to come in with him, let him come in with him. But people need to hear Eric's story, because right now he's been judged and he's been convicted by leftist judges, people that have no business being in a court. Judge, am I correct?
No, in fact, we've talked about this before on the show. If this case was before me, if I was the DA, I never would have put the case into the grand jury, period. But I would have dismissed the case, absolutely. And on a conviction, I would have set aside as contrary to the weight of evidence. And I hope on the appeal, if that's going forward, that this is overturned. This is a total miscarriage. And as for the judge,
this goes back to what we're saying here with voting having consequences. We have judges, DAs, and lawmakers, at the city and state level who are systemically jeopardizing public safety all the time. I mean, we had these conversations all while this trial was going on.
No, and I'll tell you what's awful too. Talk about the contempt for law enforcement and our brave women and men of blue. You have a parole board. 43 cop killers have been let out by the parole board. These people get $190,000 a year. One of the members of the parole board I just read, she married a murderer. I mean, what kind of people are the governors of this state, the Democratic governors of this state, putting on the parole board that 43 cop killers are let on parole? And then the legislature wants to do this ridiculous thing, have a mandatory review at 55 based on age, so that every year they can have an annual hearing, every 2 years, an annual hearing, once again, to relitigate the sentence and making the families go through the trauma again. What are your thoughts?
Listen, I mean, I agree with you 100%. There is no accountability on the other end. And every time something happens that's wrongdoing on their part with whatever laws that they pass or whatever judgments that they render, they point to the police and they make the police the scapegoats. And we all know that the economy, the police, the economy all go hand in hand, as do the business people in this city. That's what makes this city run. Not an ideology, not some democratic socialist out there or progressive judge that feels as if that they have to do good by what their society's beliefs are. I mean, we have a rule of law in this country for a reason. It's 250 years it has kept us safe. All of a sudden now they want to rip it all apart. I mean, listen, voting has consequences. If you vote for one side and you think it's the greatest thing in the world or the pie in the sky, you're going to wind up finding out that it really wasn't that, and it was something disgusting you had put in front of you at your table. And by that time, it's too late.
Yeah, I agree with you. After a judge makes a decision to convict a hardworking NYPD sergeant over a guy that had probably been involved in drug dealing and had been arrested numerous times,
Fernando,
it just makes no sense.
He had a rap sheet.
It just makes no. Listen, I don't understand why we are defending criminals. Why we are raising this kid Carmelo Anthony in Texas raised close to $1 million.
Yeah, he stabbed the kid
because he stabbed the kid to death. Yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable.
How much did Luigi raise?
Yeah, Mangione.
And
it's not just minorities.
He's a cult hero.
And they made him a cultural hero, folk hero.
And it's not just minorities. Like, this is for people who think like, oh, this is about minorities and people trying to get payback. Luigi Mangione is a rich white kid from the suburbs of Baltimore, and yet he's also they're cheering on crime, aren't they, Vincent Vallalon?
Yeah, they send the wrong message to everybody. You put these statements out there. You give people a voice that really should not be on television. You give them press passes to go out there and who aren't really reporters, who are really some of them are mentally ill, and you put these, all of a sudden we've made these people idols, and I don't understand.
Well,
I don't teach my kids that.
Vince, I made a big point of it last week. I told the president, I told many other people. The fact is that Nora case, all those people were paid actors. And maybe they were paid $100,000 between all of them, or $200,000. But they got millions and millions of dollars of advertising because the national media, well, you know what they did? They publicized it around the country.
All right, and this is in Newark. And now that the news media isn't covering the Newark story as much at Delaney Hall, and I know this is out of the jurisdiction of NYPD, but I'm sure you can comment on it. It's no longer getting it's no longer getting much traction. They're not showing up every day and biting the ICE officers and the whole thing because it's not on the news every night.
You know what it is? Papers don't sell. The media doesn't sell if they don't create controversy. And the way they create controversy is by defending criminals, because defending a victim isn't popular anymore. Defending criminals, create headlines. And raising money, criminals raise more money than victims these days.
Last word to you, Vincent Vallalon.
What we're seeing today, especially with some of these handpicked candidates from certain parties, they are enabling individuals to come up. What we just talked about. They're enabling these people, and at the end of the day, what they're doing is they're victimizing the victims over and over again. Is that not what we're not supposed to do? We're supposed to protect the victims of crimes. Listen, as cops, we take a beating every single day. We get up the next day, we go to work. The victims of these crimes are the ones who actually get victimized over and over again. And it's got to stop. People need to look at this when they go to the ballot box and realize that these democratic socialists do not have your best interest in mind. They want to use your money, not theirs, but they want to enrich themselves on what's going on.
Vincent Vallalon, the president of the Sergeants Benevolent Association. We have to take a break. And when we come back, we've got a number of amazing guests, including General Blaine Holt and, at the bottom of the hour, Senator Tommy Tuberville from Alabama. We'll be right back.
Sid and Friends in the morning on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We have General Holt with us, and he's one knowledgeable guy, one good friend, and he knows where everything, which way everything is going. Well, General Holt, what the heck is going on? I mean, do you have any pulse of what's going on in Iran?
Good morning. Yes, I do. They're in complete chaos and disarray, but there's very good reasons to be encouraged by that. What we're seeing in Iran is an IRGC that is on its last gasp. It's running out of weapons. It's certainly broke. And are
they getting paid?
No, they're not getting paid. Scott Bessent's done a marvelous job of mopping up all that money. And, they're not receiving any oil revenue as yet. And they can't pay anybody anyway. They're isolated. The number one and number two issue in Iran right now today is food and water. And so this puts the vice president into a marvelous leverage position to get what he wants from a group of civilian Iranians that are as terrified of the IRGC as the population is. And so the IRGC is really the long pole in the tent, John. And I believe that that's going to take care of, if not itself, the United States will certainly help with that as we get Iran to the next chapter.
And General, I mean, some of these fake newses that go out and panic some of the media about Iran. We're on again, off again, on again, off again. I mean, shouldn't the media be smart enough to realize that you have to decide who's speaking and who's giving them the fake news?
Oh, they should, and they're certainly capable of doing that, but they're welded to one idea, and that is throw rocks at President Trump, and they all want to see him fail, and they certainly don't want to see him get this victory in the Middle East ahead of the midterms like this. And so they're going to criticize every molecule of everything that happens every day. But let's be honest, what President Trump has done is amazing. We have an Iran that's basically defanged. It doesn't have much of a military at all left. It's certainly not going to be able to make any nuclear weapons or start producing weapons. And it's got a very expectant population that wants their country back. And I see the Venezuela model emerging, and that, yes, that's going to make a lot of eyeballs bleed in the media circles, but so be it.
Are ships moving? Are tankers moving?
They are. I just checked again this morning. We see a steady stream. We're not at capacity by any stretch of the imagination. But where we normally see 120 ships a day transiting, we're now probably looking at about 40, maybe 50 on a good day over the last 5 days. And that's only going to pick up from here. They're probably going to be extra safe about the mining thing. And again, the IRGC is an impediment here. But I believe all that's getting cleared up over these next few weeks.
Give us your pulse on Lebanon. What the heck is going on? Is Israel and are they still exchanging?
Well, yeah, we had a broken piece of this here. So you had the IRGC, which is telling Hezbollah to go throw everything you've got at Israel. Israel then predictably going on into Lebanon. And then the Lebanese getting upset about their sovereignty. And so what I see coming together is a really brilliant plan. Vice President Vance and President Trump are trying to wicker the Lebanese and the Israelis, their defense forces, working together to eradicate the last of Hezbollah there in the south. The Lebanese can take care of Beirut. And they'll do so under a common framework and rules of engagement that the United States can monitor. And doesn't that just make sense? Because if we handle it that way, as Hezbollah dies out from supply chain issues and money issues, we'll be on our way to the Abraham Accords. And it'll give you a clear path towards that, and you won't have adversaries in Lebanon and Israel.
General Holt, this is Jake Novak. We got some really dramatic news over the weekend that the IDF had surrounded Hezbollah's Pentagon, their underground Pentagon in the Ali Taher Ridge, and it's still surrounded. Now, apparently, we heard reports that they were told not to move in. This seems to be like something that may have helped turn the Iranians into a little bit more of a desperate actor in the talks. It's still very volatile, as you said. In fact, we just got a report from Israeli media that some gunmen near the troops in Lebanon were hit by the Israelis, and Hezbollah saying the truce was violated. We're going to hear this kind of stuff for days. But this Ali Taher Ridge and this underground control center for Hezbollah built for them by Iran, can you tell us anything about that?
Yeah, they have a bunker system and a tunnel system, and this probably is not the only one. But the fact that they have a line on it, if they can bring in the Lebanese forces to help them close the deal there, that'd be great. But when we go back to the mothership, which is really the IRGC, and the reason I say IRGC, and I'm specific about that, is because you can't say Iran or the Iranian regime anymore. If you ask me about the Iranian regime, I'd say which one. There's 3 and maybe 4 by next week. Because the mullahs are dying out. Mojtaba, a man without legs, is the last legs of that. And then you have the IRGC, which is running out of everything, and all they can do is phone it into Hezbollah. But the IRGC is still dangerous, and so you have these civilian negotiators in the middle who could be the new interim leaders. But if they come home to Tehran saying, yeah, we're going to do everything the United States wants because we lost, then the IRGC will just kill those guys. And so it's a very, very complex situation. But I think when you take a look at all the different agendas and all the different things going on, we're managing it quite well. And let's remind everybody that there's no 130,000 U.S. forces on the ground in Iran.
Yeah, I just saw a bulletin that 1.9 million barrels moved yesterday through the Strait.
Yep. It's moving, and it's going to alleviate a lot of pain. It's also going to keep the Chinese on the sidelines. The Europeans, all they can do is say thank you because they didn't lift a finger on what would be their vital interests. And here's the adversary nobody really talks about, Lloyd's of London. They're the ones who have stopped up the straits financially. And when President Trump went up to the G7, basically gave them all a reminder. Let's remember that President Trump, the night before Keir Starmer resigned, had said he would do just that. So one can only wonder what Starmer and President Trump had talked about when the G7 was going on.
Well, I guess he had some information on them. Last question. Putin and Zelensky, Ukraine and Russia, what the heck is going on?
Well, it's getting more dangerous, and it's probably going to escalate before we start to see the end of it. I imagine President Trump is pretty stern with the Europeans that not only did they not lift a finger in the Middle East, that none of them has lifted a diplomatic finger to try to end this war. And Putin is getting very frustrated with the attacks on Russia. But then, the neocons want it both ways. They say if we don't stop Russia here, they're going to take over all of Europe. They can't even get past the Dnieper River. At the other end of the spectrum, they have the best nuclear weapons on the planet. And so why keep poking the bear? Why not just cut a deal? And unfortunately, that's the situation Kiev finds themselves in. They're a valiant fighting force, but they're not going to be able to defeat Russia. And if that's the case, then why aren't we exploring the end by other means, which is exactly what Europe needs to do immediately instead of doubling down with this $90 billion in garbage.
Anything else the American people should know on the Tuesday morning? I'm losing track of time.
Primary day.
I don't know. Oh, that's right. I can't even go vote. There's nobody to vote for.
Vote off and vote early. The Americans should be very encouraged by what they see overseas, but that doesn't mean that a force called the IRGC, which is about to go into martyrdom, won't do something drastic on the way out. And that means watch for cell activity here. If they activate cells as the last gasp, we need to see something, say something, keep our heads on a swivel. After all, we do have the 4th of July coming up, and we certainly have the World Cup going on.
Yeah, speaking of the World Cup,
to watch after everybody.
Speaking of the World Cup, General, not a lot of people picking up on this story, but we learned that there was evidence of a plot by the IRGC to insert terrorists into the Iranian national soccer team. Now, the good news is, it looks like that has been at least alerted to us, and they're under heavy security. But that's really, really frightening.
It is. And as a military man, I would tell you that's probably what I would call a tactical deception. It's so obvious that they would try to infuse terrorists there. So what I wonder is what is the real operation that they're working on? They would always put some of their cannon fodder to go get picked up by the FBI. What are they really doing? And that's. So I would just say we're not out of the woods. Everybody needs to just keep their head on a swivel and report anything that looks absolutely off base here because, success overseas means a little bit of danger here because of 4 years of open borders.
General Blaine Holt, any update on the B-52, how it just disappeared?
Yeah, we're still looking for the fuel count, and the Air Force hasn't really said anything. We should be getting an official announcement in the next 2 weeks. But the only reason I can think that fuselage doesn't exist anymore is because it was full with fuel. But the other thing we have to find out, of course, and you and I have talked about this, is what was faulty on the test menu for that mission that they had to delay it by weeks, and crew members were getting increasingly concerned.
General Holt, thank you so much for coming on this Tuesday morning. And, is there an election near you? You're near Idaho, right? Is there one in Utah?
I'm in the great state of Idaho. We've already had our primaries, and we've duked it out locally. And you know what we're doing? We're having a great American day out here, and I hope you all do the same.
God bless you. God bless America. And thank you for everything you've done for our country, and continue to speak out for our country.
God bless. Take care.
Thank you. And let's take a break, and we're going to come back with
Senator Tommy Tuberville in a few minutes.
Well, how about Lynn?
And we got a bunch of other people coming. Hold on.
Yeah.
Jake, you know how to really pronounce all these names. You're great, man.
Good at that.
Sid and Friends in the morning on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Our Senior Vice President of News and Programming, Lee Harris. Lee, you got something good for us today.
Yeah, we have a new Washington correspondent who works for our worldwide news network. Like many of the people who have joined us, she previously worked for CBS. That is Stacey Lynn. She's based in Washington, and she's joining us here this morning on Cats and Friends, filling in for Sid and Friends for the very first time. Good morning, Stacey.
Good morning. Such a pleasure to be on with you guys.
And I'd like you to meet our owner and chief bottle washer, John Katzimatidis. You can hear him every hour of the day on WABC.
I'm always on. I can't sleep at night. I'm on at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning.
He tried to crash my show one day, and I said, "No, John, this is my hour."
Yeah. And the bad news is, John.
Take a nap.
The bad news is, John now has your phone number.
Right, exactly.
Stacey, any hot news from Washington today? We're looking for hot news.
There's always hot news in Washington, of course. President actually doesn't have any public events in town today because he's heading to Reading, Pennsylvania. He'll be there this afternoon, delivering remarks at a truck manufacturing plant. That's around 2 p.m. Eastern time, and the speech is focusing on American manufacturing, the domestic trucking industry. But of course, everyone is buzzing in Washington about, the president's comments on the reflecting pool. We can't get away from that, and the paint and the algae blooms and he says it's not the result of the big makeover, the $16.5 million makeover. And he's claiming he has some evidence of vandalism to the reflecting pool. We've noticed in Washington that the administration has bumped up law enforcement around it. You're seeing National Guard members, U.S. Marshals Service members are around, other law enforcement agencies are down kind of patrolling by the National Mall as well. And we hear there have been some arrests made. They're also ticketing people that, try to dip their fingers in and touch it, touching, the water with their hands to get a little bit of history there. So we're watching that. Something else big in Washington today. Of course, Congress, we're following this bipartisan bill, an actual bipartisan bill passed in Washington. Yeah. It is true. It is an overwhelmingly passed sweeping housing affordability bill. So Senate passed it last night. It now goes to the House. House is expected to pass it very quickly, and it should head to the president's desk probably by tomorrow or a little bit later on this week. So watching that as well. Of course, there's some big events in Washington coming up this week, including the Great American State Fair, and President Trump's expected to headline the kickoff event tomorrow night for that, kind of looking into what to expect. I know that they said the MAHA movement is part of what we'll see at this Great American State Fair, but healthy eating and fair food doesn't quite go together. So still anticipating a lot of fried food on a stick. At least we can hope.
Well, please. Stacey Lynn, this is Jake Novak. First of all, and I give you a papal dispensation. This will not conflict with the rules of bias and reporting. Can we please make a public service announcement to everyone? Please do not walk in, vandalize, or go anywhere near reflecting pools. The last person we allowed to do it was Robin Wright Penn as Jenny in Forrest Gump when she wades into the Lincoln Memorial. I don't even know if that was the real Lincoln Memorial, but if you're not Robin Wright Penn in Forrest Gump, please do not walk into the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool. Do not touch it. It's not for this. No touching. This is not. But all kidding aside, another thing that we're looking at in D.C. this week, and I know that it's one of those things. Any minute now, we could get some of these very big Supreme Court decisions, including the one about birthright citizenship, the one about whether or not President Trump can legally fire Lisa Cook, the Federal Reserve governor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean. Talk a little bit. Listen, you're a reporter in the field. Talk a little bit about how you have to pivot there. Suddenly, we're asking you to go from covering political movements and the way votes are going, and suddenly you got to become Alan Dershowitz or a Felix Frankfurter. I mean, you got to be ready for these kinds of things, don't you?
Yeah, and the Supreme Court cases get very, very weedy, very inside baseball, very quick. And so my job, obviously, is to check out what the big cases are and when they do come down with rulings and try to make it sound, understandable to everyday people, because people don't want to hear all the nitty gritty and details. But Supreme Court has some big cases, and there's about, I think, 19 more rulings that they need to get to before early July. So they have a whole lot on their plate. And we do understand that this morning around 10 a.m. is when first rulings are supposed to come out. They don't ahead of time tell us what exactly they will rule on for the day. So we kind of follow along to see what is going to happen. But like you said, some big cases that we're kind of waiting for, and we will pivot to if necessary.
Stacey Lynn, another question now. Now, this is serious because I used to live and work in Washington, D.C. That's another one of my addresses, Fernando. And
wow, I can't believe it.
So listen, it is a changing city. Ever since the George W. Bush administration, it has been booming and booming with a lot of construction, with a lot of building up. And also, so what's it like to actually work there? First of all, the one thing I've noticed is there are good restaurants in Washington, D.C. now. That was not the case in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s because no one's from there. Hardly anyone actually who works there grew up there, and you need ethnic communities to create good restaurants. But what's it like doing radio reporting out of Washington, D.C. and living? I mean, I assume you're living either in the district or a nearby suburb. You don't have to give us your address. You can do that later.
Right. But I will say nothing is going to trump New York when it comes to restaurants. But you are absolutely correct. D.C. is like ever evolving. And I think, like you said, all these transplants that are moving in and working here and around the area are always looking for, good food and food that reflects maybe their heritage and culture. And you are seeing more and more pockets of that around the city, which is great. It's a great thing. It is definitely a growing and thriving market. It was kind of worrisome when a lot of the federal governments, were downsizing. And, even through COVID, when people, were working from home and then didn't come back into the office on how that would work. But yeah, indeed, right now, it does feel like it's booming once again and things are thriving. The construction, like you said, is always a challenge. Getting in and around the district, whether you're visiting, whether you're working here, whether you're, just kind of in and out for, one day during the week or so is always a challenge. You're always seeing construction. They're always trying to beautify the city a little bit more. And it's definitely a challenge. Metro, obviously, the way to go if you are trying to get around.
Right, Stacey, this is, I'm sorry, Lee. Stacey, this is Fernando Mateo. Welcome to the WABC family.
Thank you.
We're here with All-State Jake. I think he's lived in every state. But first of all,
no arrest warrants in any of those states, by the way, none.
First of all, your voice is very soothing. It's very, very nice to listen to. And are you a DC person, or do you come from another state?
I grew up in Maryland and have always lived in either the D.C. area or Maryland. I moved for one job way back in my 20s. I moved up to Massachusetts. I lived on Cape Cod, and I worked in radio up there for a brief amount of time and then got pulled back into this area. And obviously the news world in D.C. is always always something going on. So always work in this area.
Please report the good things that the president is doing. Make us all aware of what's going on in D.C. and how the GOP and the Republican Party, led by President Trump, is delivering for America. Everything we hear is always negative stuff. We don't hear about all of the good things that he is doing. And I hope that, you're going to report some of those good things.
Absolutely. Two sides to every story, and we need to deliver the news to the people. That's
all right, that is Stacey
correct.
Lynn, our new Washington correspondent for the Worldwide News Network. She brings decades of experience, John, in that position, and we are very happy to have her here.
But she sounds like she's only 29.
Maybe
You
she
keep
is.
thinking that. I love that. I love that.
That's why I didn't get into hard numbers. We don't want people doing the
Right.
backwards math on that. But overall, the important thing to know is she really knows what she's doing. She knows where the bodies are buried, and she'll get to them.
Yes.
And we're not going to ask you how much you weigh either. Don't worry. We're not going to do that.
You never ask a woman her age or weight.
You know, I noticed that on
ever.
the college rosters, on the college teams, they have the weights for the male players, but not for the female. I mean, come on. I mean,
Right.
whatever. Well,
Yeah.
there you go. This is Stacey Lynn. Best of luck to you, and thanks for joining the team here on the Worldwide News Network. This is Sid and Friends in the Morning. It's the Cats and Friends Takeover Day 3. When we come back,
Day 2.
No, we didn't
Today's
start on
Tuesday.
Friday. We started on Friday.
Day
Only day 2 for
okay,
you,
I'm
Fernando.
sorry. I was out of it. You didn't
That's
invite
right.
me on
You're
Friday.
included
Well,
in. You're included in that.
You forgot. You forgot the initiation fee.
Need a laptop that's built to perform and designed to last all day? Select Windows 11 PCs starting at $499.99 are now at Best Buy. Learn more at bestbuy.com. Best Buy. Imagine that.
Sid and Friends in the morning on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Senator Tommy Tuberville is going to be joining us in a moment. Probably going to be. Oh, he's here. He's joining us. Senator, also on your way to becoming the next governor, but we're not going to jinx that.
He won the primary by only 85%.
Yeah, come on. What's with the other 15%, Senator? Come on.
85 and a half, John.
Oh, God.
But, Senator, we have you on this morning to talk about something that's very important to you and all over the country. And another example of some potential really strong bipartisanship in Congress. This is the work that you're doing to try to make AI and other technology safe for children in schools. So tell us where that stands right now, please.
Well, it's very important. And people talk about AI is coming. No, it's not coming. Sorry, here. It's the future of our country. Same thing when we came up with the computer, the iPhone, and the internet. And it's going to be 10 times probably faster growing than anything that we've done. So we need to start educating. We need to have ethics. We need to do things in our classroom from K through 12. Kids need to be told and taught about the use of AI. And this generation coming up will decide the future of our country against people like Russia and China, who are vastly growing in AI, and they're trying to hold us back. China is doing all the propaganda with the mainstream media about we don't need data centers. They're bad for the environment. They use too much electricity, too much water. All this propaganda is coming from China, and they're trying to hold us back from gaining ground to continue to beat them in AI. But we have to be able to educate our kids. It's all about education. We used to be a vastly well-educated country. We're not anymore because socialism and communism has taken over in a lot of our K through 12s and our four-year universities. But we have to fight back at that. We have to fight back. We have to teach our kids more and important things about education. If you talk to Elon Musk says that, hey, you don't need to go to a four-year school anymore. Just learn how to use AI. AI will educate you a lot more than these propaganda-based woke professors in these four universities. And I totally agree with him, because if we don't get some of these people out of harm's way in terms of teaching our kids, we're going to lose our country as we know it.
Senator, you know a lot about the university world, having been at the university there. First of all, my apologies. My daughter's going to Vanderbilt, and we all know what Vanderbilt did to the Crimson Tide. My apologies for that. But all kidding aside, how are the universities incorporating this? I mean, we pay a lot of money to send our kids to these schools, and if you're not doing that, you're still paying a lot of money to these schools in taxes. The one thing that the universities in America had, despite all the woke politics for a while, was we still were the best for STEM education and medical education and things like that. Are we on a good pace to incorporate AI education at our universities?
I think we're talking very favorably about it. Are we doing anything about it? That's the problem. We have to mandate what's going on in our four-year schools and even through K through 12. I'm going to do that in Alabama. We're going to start teaching our teachers online about AI. We're going to work and have an hour a day of AI, K through 12, and we're going to mandate that we do it in the proper channels through our four-year universities. Now, the problem that we have, again, is we're going to be fighting these woke professors in these universities. I tell you, we're going to have trouble. You're going to have huge trouble in the Northeast around all these supposedly nonprofit Ivy League schools that, again, are infiltrated by Chinese and people from other countries that are going to fight back on this. And President Trump obviously is fighting back on it. But in the South, you can see the growth in this country. The growth in this country now is all over the South. People are moving out of the Northeast, moving to the South. They want to go to where the taxes are lower, but also education is better. Now, it is better in the South, but it can be much better, and we need to make some changes there. But it's almost gone in the Northeast because of all the woke socialism nonsense that Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren are preaching, and this is just carrying on over into education.
Senator, this is Fernando Mateo. Thank you for being on the show today. I mean, we've taken over Sid's show here, and we're having a lot of fun, and we love having people like you. Are you trying to say that there are no woke people in Alabama?
Oh, yeah. No, we've got
woke
them.
doesn't exist there?
Yeah, they exist. Not quite as much as it is in the Northeast and on the far left coast, in some of the big cities in the Midwest. No, we've got plenty of it. We've got enough to where if we turned our head and had a blind eye to it, that it would really rapidly grow. Now, that's the reason that you're seeing a lot of change in governors. You're going to have a new governor in Tennessee, a new governor in Georgia, a new governor in Alabama, a new governor in Florida. And I'm keeping an eye on that, and I know all these people, and we're all going to grow together to make sure that we fight back on any form of socialism or third world country people move into our states, because what's happening is our culture is changing, and we're not going to allow the culture to change in the South. I would hope that we would have a better plan in the Northeast and some of our Midwest cities, but it looks like that President Trump's fighting with ICE. He's fighting with a lot of these mayors and governors, but it's not making a lot of headway. And that's the reason that we need a stronger Congress up here when we've got House, the Senate, and the White House.
So what you're saying here is that you guys are going to keep the woke out by creating a block of unity of all these southern states.
Well, yeah, of course. Now,
congratulations, Senator. Congratulations.
You're not going to be 100%, but you're going to keep a majority. And as long as you got a majority, you can overcome the minority in terms of the people that believe in socialism, communism, believe in DEI, no law enforcement, defund the police, and all that. It's just unfortunate. Being up here in the Senate now almost for 6 years, I've seen the rapid growth, not just all over the country in some areas, but also here in Congress, about the talk of socialism, the talk of communism, the talk of higher taxes. You know, what you're doing in the Northeast and New York, the 5% wealth tax. My God, y'all don't want any people up there. Y'all just want to run people out down to, hey, we'll take them. We'll take all those billionaires in Alabama and Georgia and Tennessee. And guess what? They're coming. They're coming by the dozens. And, again, but we need an entire country of 50 states that believes in our Constitution.
What we need up here is to get the block that you have down there moving up here so that we can fix this woke situation.
Well, it's all about leadership.
That's
you gotta
right.
have leadership. And if you don't have leadership, then you got huge problems. Now, you got leadership in New York now, but it's going the wrong direction, way wrong. Same thing in Chicago and Detroit, obviously in L.A. All those things are just going the opposite direction. And I don't know whether it needs to go to the bottom before people just realize, what the heck have we done? But again, what's going to happen is you're running out people that really want to work, that really want to have success. You're running them out of the Northeast, and they're coming south. And again, we'll take them. But this country can't survive with 10 or 15 states that just believe in our Constitution and capitalism. We have to have everybody on board. And hopefully we don't have to go to the bottom before we figured out that we've made a huge mistake in accepting the things like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and Mondami and Gavin Newsom believe in.
And Sanders.
Yeah, exactly.
Judge.
Bernie Sanders.
So what is going on? What is going on in Washington? Anything good?
Well, tomorrow we're going to find out, and I'm looking forward to President Trump is coming to the Senate. We have a lunch every Tuesday and Wednesday. He's been invited to come over, and we should have invited him a long time ago. He's the leader of our party. He's the leader of the country. He's the leader of everybody in this country, and he's actually the leader of the free world. And look what he's trying to do. He has got his hands full And unfortunately, he's got a handful of people in the United States Senate and the Republican side that don't like him. And they don't hold any bones about it. So I hope he comes in tomorrow. And, it'll be an interesting day. We need to get everything out on the table. We have no time to waste. We have 3 or 4 months to the midterms. I'd like to see him come in, open the door, and slam it on the way in and say, okay, let's get something straight. 80 to 90% of the people believe, as Republicans and even Democrats, 70% believe in the Save America Act. Why are you 4 people in here voting against it? And just go to each one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a reason. Give me a reason. Tell me why you're against the American people. You're a United States Senator. You're not voting for yourself. You're voting for the people. And I want to hear them in front of the most popular and the best leader that we've had in my lifetime, Donald Trump, and look him in the eye and tell him why they're not voting for the Save America Act. And I exposed all 4 of them last week. And
can you tell us the names of the 4 again right now? So if we have 1 million people listening, I want those 1 million people to know.
Okay. Last week, it was Tom Tillis, North Carolina. Now, Tom's going out the door, and he's never been a Donald Trump guy. I want to hear what he says about the Save America Act, though, because I know people in North Carolina believe in that.
Mm-hmm.
Susan Collins, who's running for office in Maine, and she's running for her 19th term or something. I know she's been up here forever. She had her 10,000 votes last week. That doesn't mean anything to me, okay? Meaning, you set a record of votes. That doesn't mean anything because she
I can forgive her because Maine is a woke culture state.
Didn't used to be.
I agree with that.
And there's an election.
And you need to stop Plattner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she can stop him by supporting the Save America Act.
And who's the other 3rd and 4th one?
Lisa Murkowski, who's a never-Trumper from Alaska.
Well, that's Alaska, yeah.
Yeah, but people of Alaska voted for Donald Trump.
Yes.
They voted for him. Now, the people of Maine did not, but the people of Alaska did. And then you got Mitch McConnell, who should have left 2 years ago. He should have never run again.
Is he okay? I heard he was in the hospital.
Yeah, he's been in the hospital a while. He will not vote again this week. He will not be at that meeting tomorrow with President Trump. He does not like President Trump. We all know that. He likes him personally, but not his politics. And Mitch McConnell has stood up.
He's got a nice wife.
Yeah.
Who, Mitch?
Elaine
Mitch, smart lady.
I'm not. And another thing, I'd like to see, okay, who in here will not vote to bust the filibuster? You'll have about 15 or 20 of them. Why do you not like it? Well, if we need to stay in there for 5 or 6 hours, and the president obviously got a lot more important things to do to hear explanations from senators that are representing the United States of America, why would you not vote for it? Because as soon as they win, and right now, if they had the election today, we would lose the United States Senate, and the week after that, they will vote to do away with the filibuster. I do not understand these people. This is not the same country 20 years ago. This is a different world, and we're fighting socialism and communism, and we need to fight it with a vote. We need to fight it with fighting back before they get control, because they're gaining control in November if we stay status quo in terms of what's going on right now with the polling. Hopefully that doesn't happen to us. If it does, heaven forbid, you give Chuck Schumer the reins of the Senate again, because it was a disaster for the 4 years that he was leader that I was here for 6 years ago.
Senator Tommy Tuberville, thank you so much for joining us from Alabama and laying out the sense of urgency that I think we need in this country. It's a primary day here in New York, Senator, and you wouldn't know it if you turned on any other channel. So thank you so much for giving us that sense of urgency.
Thanks for listening to Sid and Friends in the Morning. You can hear Sid and Friends in the Morning weekday mornings at 6. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?